And then this separate thing will be about, purely IP. So
love it. Love that
all
we're
right.
covering so many bases.
Let's we're waiting. Paxton, are you going to keep track of the teams and put it in the chat orders and stuff? And
I've got the order ready. I'll wait for a few more people to join so I don't have to resend it, but I've got the order typed out already.
Great. Thank you, Paxton.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, nice to see you. And we're just waiting like a minute or two, and then we're going to launch right into it. We have a lot to cover today. It's very exciting. So, welcome. Oh, hey, Liz.
Hi.
I'm like, there's a familiar face. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So excited to join today.
Yay. That's awesome. Is Paige here? Not yet? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'm here.
Hey, Paige. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's great to have you. Oh, yeah, we were just talking about getting not only someone that can talk about, legalities, but also like specifically IP, like what if you have a great idea and like, how much should you worry about protecting it or not? So, yeah.
We're going to wait till 12:05 and then we'll chat about our stuff and then we'll let Paige and Liz present.
Absolutely. So Paige and Liz are on for, if that's okay with you all, from 12:10 to 12:20. And so hopefully you can, tell us about yourself and before that we'll do a quick intro and then we'll take it from there. Okay. So how many are we expecting, Paxton?
I'm doing the attendance right now. I think 12:05 will be a perfect starting point.
Sounds good.
Looking like most groups are represented. Yeah,
Great.
it's looking good.
Yeah, and then for today, Paxton, let's do 2 minutes on the clock because it's going to take a little longer for them to walk through the homework because it was, it's a little more visual. It just takes a second. So
yeah, no problem. All right, I'm going to send the order in the chat.
Great.
Or after the presentation, so.
Perfect. So welcome everyone. What we're doing is we're gonna just do a quick 5-minute intro. Then we have 2 special guests and alumni doing incredible things that are gonna talk to you. And then we're gonna launch into you talking about, what you've been up to, how it's going before our speaker at 1 o'clock.
Before we start talking, does anyone have any questions or comments? All right. So welcome everybody. As you can see, Carl has found some alumni of the program to speak, and then our speaker this afternoon is going to be Taurus Kravchuk. He's actually one of my business partners in Tarform Electric Motorcycles, TARFORM. But he is also, he and I have a very similar path in life. We've both been entrepreneurs for a long time. We got kind of looped together through being entrepreneurs and have been friends and presented at things like this. We used to do a how to make stuff class for Soho House and for other like sort of big corporate things where we would go and talk through like idea generation and seeing things through with creatives. We've always been believers of helping creatives get things made. And then Taurus founded an electric motorcycle company, Tarform, about 4 years ago, I believe, maybe 5 now. And I've been working for that company for about 2 years as a consultant. So he's going to kind of talk to us very generally about entrepreneurship, what he's done. He'll talk about like troubles he's had, thoughts he's had over the years, because he's been through a lot. He's sold companies, he's built companies, he's done everything that you would do. But I think more importantly, right now, Carl has some really cool news straight from the president of Pratt.
Yeah, so what happened was I was on campus 2 days ago on my lunch break, and I walked into President Bronnett, And she was very excited. I mentioned the Ignition Lab and she lit up. And I said, it's during Parents' Weekend, so I know you're busy. Her exact quote was, I'm never too busy for that. So she wants to attend and see you guys, which is amazing exposure and just wonderful support since it's the flagship program. And Liz has something to do with that. Liz, I'm forever grateful to you, but I'll get to that in a second. And so then she mentioned, so is it going to be in person? And to be honest with you, I've just been so focused on like curriculum and guests and mentors and all that kind of stuff. I haven't really thought about that. And I was like, I'm not sure, but I wanted to run that by you. And my first initial response was, ooh, I don't know, logistics, da 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 da. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about what an amazing opportunity that could be to actually be in person, physically present, be on the big screen in the student union where you have this like huge jumbotron with the stadium seating with the president and like audience members, and everything is safe. But I wanted to first run that by you. And you might have an initial response the way I did to be like, I don't know. That was my personal initial response. And then the more I let it marinate, the more I actually got excited and saw possibilities. So I wanted to first open with that. And nothing's set in stone, but this is now something that's exciting, that's a possibility.
Yeah, so April 9th, and we're not asking you to make a decision on the spot. We're gonna put it out there and we're gonna kind of take a poll and we're gonna leave it up to sort of the democratic process of allowing you guys, and we will take, if the majority says, let's keep it on Zoom, we'll keep it on Zoom. But I'm going to tell you right now, having the opportunity to pitch in an environment like this in real life is invaluable. Like you'll never get the opportunity to pitch it with a safe parachute of being on campus, being through this program, having everyone together here that's been going through this to support you. So it'll be the first time you guys all meet together and get a network. So there's a lot of opportunities here that we think would be really beneficial to doing this in-person live pitch. So both Carl and I are yeses, and we would hope you guys would be as well, but we understand if there's issues or something that could come up. So we're gonna follow up with a poll or an email, and we're gonna say, let us know your thoughts, and we'll tally the numbers, and then we'll let you know whether we're pitching, we'll do it live, whether we're doing it live.
Yeah, or even like if we have to do a hybrid model, we're flexible. We just want to hear from you. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is you and what you get out of this experience. So just keep that in mind. Let us know any thoughts, concerns, excitements, whatever. We're going to take everything into account. And thank you. And with that, we have 1 minute. And so I want to introduce, Liz was actually one of the reasons that this program even started. She was my original graduate assistant and was incredible and like helped like basically create the entire program. So I'm so grateful and to her, and I want her to now introduce this new program that she and Paige put together that sounds absolutely incredible, and it shows what you can achieve as an alum of the program with entrepreneurial experience. And with that, Paige and Liz, we're so glad you're here, and please take it over.
Thank you so much. I actually have a short presentation, if I could share my screen.
Oh yeah, let me make you co-host.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's see. There you are.
Thank you.
One second, my whole computer just like blew up.
Paige, you're also a co-host, just in case you need it.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, my computer's back and running. Whew. Thank you so much, Carl, for introducing Liz and I. I mean, I definitely feel like I speak for both of us when we say that we're excited to share our journey with authentic entrepreneurship with you all. And We were students just like you, and we brought this idea from an idea into a reality. And I'm really excited about you all doing that same thing with your gifts and your passions, because we use our experience in the arts and media to build a business that helps us be the people that we are and serve our community at the same time. So here's our story, and we offer this to you as only an example, because entrepreneurship will always be unique to you, your gifts, your values, your goals. And business is just as much about understanding who you are as it is about understanding how you can contribute to the world around you. But first things first, let's tell you who we are. My name is Paige. I am the experience director at Not Yet. This community healing project began as my thesis in the media studies graduate program.
And I'm Liz. I'm the Not Yet outreach manager and was the graduate assistant of the very first Ignition Lab at Pratt in 2018. I'm also a media studies alum. That's where I met Paige. And today we're going to share our story from learning at Pratt to building a business. So it's our hope that this will support you on your own entrepreneurship journey. And we'll talk about creating products that serve your mission and community, adding to the conversation in your industry, and how to market yourself memorably. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure to answer them after the presentation.
So what is Not Yet? It is a community healing network. We help you build the creative, spiritual, and leadership foundations to bring your dreams to life. We're content creators and conversation starters, and we offer resources to guide you on your own personal growth journey. Having gone through my own challenges growing as a leader and an artist, I wanted to help others who were on their own self-awareness journeys. And I wanted this project to also be sustainable, which is where I learned so much from Liz.
Working in the Ignition Lab taught me so many important entrepreneurial skills. I learned how to identify our audience, create user profiles, and the foundation of user experience design. Cultivating innovation in the Ignition Lab really inspired me to apply my skills towards my creative interests and work on the Not Yet project with Paige.
So to best serve our community, we had to first figure out who we wanted to serve. The points on this slide represent our ideal community members. We're drawn to people who are learning how to invest in themselves and their dreams, folks who question the status quo, live beyond the binary, are here for the community and have an abundant mindset, are healing their traumas, grateful, and spiritual. Drop a heart or an exclamation point in the chat if any of these ideas resonate with you. By shaping our business around our core beliefs, we attract the people who are meant to benefit from our work.
After understanding who it is that we serve, we research similar businesses that fall on the axis you see here. Not Yet lives between the spiritual and material worlds and between digital and in-person community.
This might look really formulaic now that you see it in a chart, but the process of finding your competitors can be kind of confusing and it can be kind of messy. What worked for me is tapping into my emotions. The moments where I felt insecure, started comparing myself to the people around me in the wellness industry, those were the opportunities to clarify my purpose. Being honest about my hopes for this business and also where I was falling short helped me find balance. Because half of this work is knowing what you can authentically share, and the other half is understanding the people that you serve.
So we identified our special zone of genius to differentiate ourselves. And the next step was to create the elements of our business.
So this slide here shows the 3 big elements of Not Yet. These elements are how we inspire people on their self-awareness journeys. And all 3 of these ways engage with our community, and they all work together. Events, a podcast and IG community, and an online membership. Our very first stream of revenue was through events, and it's how we began to find our community in a pre-COVID Brooklyn. People would attend events like our sex positivity workshop, for example, then join our newsletter to learn more about our project. We then noticed a lot of conversations in our events about identity, expression, growth. So we acknowledged this need and launched our weekly Not Yet podcast, where you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, when COVID caused everyone to reevaluate how we engage with one another, we launched our online sliding scale membership. Here we share resources like seasonal visioning workshops and guided meditations in a community setting. This way we can create conversations, not just media.
We wanted to build a memorable and cohesive brand that tied together all of the elements of Not Yet. So we created user profiles and came up with some descriptive words that relate to our mission of helping revolutionary minds build the creative, spiritual, and leadership foundations to bring their dreams to life. These descriptors: fun, inspired, authentic, creative, introspective, and powerful, guided the design decisions. This is how we envision our brand based on who we are and the community we serve. The essential components of our brand kit include primary and secondary fonts, logos, color, and design elements. Keeping all of this in mind, we decided on a strong primary font, Glamour Absolute, and a handwritten secondary font, Wisely, to create our wordmark logo. You can see our color scheme below, as well as a watercolor effect as our primary design element in our podcast art. The essence of our brand is welcoming and inviting, and we hope that that came across to you in this presentation.
Thanks so much for your ears and for being a part of our journey here. It's been so much to share it with you, and we also want to support you in your own entrepreneurship journeys too. If you point your phones at this QR code, it'll take you straight to a super special offer for a free 1-month membership to our online community. We also have a visioning workshop coming up soon, and as a member, you'll have access to attend it for free.
Thank you for the time today. And before we dive into questions, we had a question we would like to ask. If there's any way that you see that our community could be helpful to any of you on your journey.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
That was really great. And also just a great role model for people as they're, learning how to present and stuff. It was really wonderful. It was really well paced. It was inviting. I'd say that's one of the thing that comes off is like real empowerment, encouraging, inviting. And this is a quiet group. They're extremely thoughtful, but, especially when you're on Zoom, it can be very challenging to say anything. But does anyone have any questions for this wonderful team of people?
I do.
Yeah, Peter.
So Paige, Liz, nice to meet you. I'm Peter Ragnetti. I am now the entrepreneur in residence for this program. So I replaced James, who I originally gave to Carl years ago, who was hired to run one of my businesses. And I also help run the entrepreneurship minor now that we've established at Pratt. So now you can minor in entrepreneurship at Pratt, which is pretty cool. So first of all, I love seeing this come from Pratt graduates. And I love seeing such a clear pitch. I think that was amazing. Next week or 2 weeks from now, or 2 sessions from now, we're going to talk about pitching. So I want you all to look at that pitch. That pitch was very clear, and there were some things that I really, really liked. I love the term zone of genius. Did you make that up, or did that come from somewhere?
I don't think we made it up. I mean, there's a few entrepreneurs that talk about zones of genius. Elaine Wenzelroth,
Okay.
who's a really strong. Do you ever have like phantom mentors, people you don't actually know?
I do.
Elaine is my phantom mentor, and
Nice.
she's a full masterclass about how she's built her unconventional career, and she talks about zones of genius.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. I love that. I also love that you guys finish with the call to action. I thought that was really, really important. I see pitches all the time. I work, in startup world, so I see, 50 decks a year. And so many times I get to the end of a deck and there's like no information and no call to action. And I'm like, what do they want from me? Do they want me to invest? Do they want me to work with them? So I thought that call to action was so important. And to have like a QR code, especially in this time where people can just like join. I'm already following you on Instagram. So that was my feedback. My one question is, as of right now, where is the company? Are you guys raising capital? Are you operating on friends and family? Are you working on a formal raise? And like, what are your current goals? And what are some of your recent wins?
Something that we've talked about, Liz and I meet every Monday. We meet every Monday, and it's arguably one of the best parts of my week because I get to build something so beautiful with someone who's also beautiful. And since the beginning of this project, it's been about community first. We initially got funding through grant funding. We got the Taconic Fellowship when we were at Pratt, and that was what allowed us to catapult our event series and make them accessible or low cost or sliding scale to our community, because that was definitely a priority. When we were deciding what success looked like for our brand, for this project, it was like, could a Black, queer, trans, low income person living in our neighborhood, living in our community, actually attend and benefit from the work that we're creating? So we actually funneled a huge amount of our money that we got from grant funding into just making things accessible to people. And no, that's not a sustainable way to build a business. It is the foundation of which we've built everything. So we're not pitching this for venture capital funding. We're not trying to make this into a tech company. Like, it's been very community centered first, and the growth has happened organically. We have access to a few different kinds of tools for that to actually have the projected growth that we want. We have an Instagram because everyone has an Instagram, and we also have a separate platform that is paid called Mighty Networks, where if folks want to get more information besides the free podcast, besides the free social media, if they want to be in a community of people who are doing this work consistently, they have the option to add on to that. But there will always be aspects of our work that's available for free.
Yeah, and then what are some of your recent wins?
I think speaking at the Ignition Lab was a big win that we had been looking forward to. Thank you so much for having us. Really, I feel like my journey's kind of almost come full circle in this moment, because it really was working in the Ignition Lab that kind of got me thinking, like, I could do this too. I could take these skills that I've learned and really apply them into, anything that I want to do. And, this was our kind of passion project that just grew into something really beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, that was all. I was just curious. I like to dig a little deeper and learn. I'm a lifelong question asker. So I'll open it up to the students. Students, do you have questions I think what they're doing is amazing. Does anyone have questions about how since they're a community-based business, does anyone think about how do you build community? Brooke, please. Brooke.
Yeah, sorry, I had a question. I was trying to find the hand up button. I think it's really great that you guys are building a community, and what me and my business, she's not here, she had a family emergency, or she had something she couldn't miss, and but we want to help artists connect and be able to monetize their art, and that's what we're doing. We want to help these communities, but an issue we're really facing is we don't know how to get into those communities and be like, you went to Pratt, the artist community, basically, like, we're not going to screw you. Like, we're not going to like mess with you. We're not gonna like, this isn't like to help ourselves. Like this is to help you. Like I was just really wondering how you guys were able to like, because I know, I mean, you get it. We all get it. Having to run a business, you need to be like, you need to pay to come here. But it's like, how do you do that without, how do you manage that line of like, we're a business, but we're also really trying to help you. Like, how do you manage that? Because it sounds like that's something you guys are doing.
Liz, I have a really big answer to this. So I'm gonna jump in. It sounds like what you're talking about, Brooke, is about how to navigate a relationship with money. Because money's everywhere. Capitalism is everywhere. And I know I single-handedly can't destroy and build up an alternative. So for the meantime, it's what we're navigating. So how do you do something that is very true and authentic to you, that you feel is very much your purpose, and also not feel slimy and gross because you have to have money to pay for it? And something that's been really helpful for me is thinking about money as energy. Money is energy, time is energy, attention is energy. And you give different aspects of your energy to things and opportunities and places and people that you love all of the time. And no, everyone doesn't have the same financial situation. No, everyone isn't dealing with the same set of circumstances. But when you are asking for someone to give you their energy in exchange for the energy that you're putting into your business, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there are different options that you can build into your business so that it can be accessible regardless of what your entry point is financially. Like that's a really big reason why our podcast happens every week and it's free. That's why we have our social media, because we know everyone's not working with the same with the same cup. But if you can make different points of access into the community that you're building that that first and foremost have to be sustainable for you, but see the unpaid options as funnels into the paid options, that's going to be able to make your business financially sustainable.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's like super good to hear. I love what you guys are doing. I can't wait for the free membership for the month. So that's great. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Paige, I thought that was a very nice way to put it. I'm much more succinct. I'm like, saving the world's expensive. You better have deep pockets.
I think the other thing I would add to that is that I know that I work with a lot of artists and they feel sometimes like a shame when they charge money for their incredible work or whatever, whereas like an accountant would never do something for free or feel, or might not. I don't want to like stigmatize accountants or whatever, but like, like a service that maybe isn't as, I love accountants, is not maybe seen as artistic or whatever. They might not have that same kind of stigma with money. And so to kind of reframe it as energy and also price points, so you can still have access for people that don't have the access, but then there are people that actually want to contribute, that have the resources, and actually it makes them feel good. So in other words, they get something out of giving, and I think that that's a really beautiful thing when sometimes people that have the money to do it, it's not just they're willing to pay, but they actually want to, because that's putting their energy towards something they believe in.
I just have like one more like follow-up question to this. So I think something that like I am also, I mean, we're not even at the financial end yet, right? Like we're still working on our MVP. Like there's still stuff that like we need to do to process. But I think something that like I'm really worried about, especially in an artist community, is that, I mean, there's this stigma with artists like not having a lot of money, but we're specifically starting with emerging artists because we think those are like who's going to actually be interested in our product. But I think the question is like, how do I ask someone that is emerging and starting in a new field to be like, all right, you need to put all this money into something that isn't tested and you don't really know for sure if it's going to work. And I'm like, going to ask you for this money because if you look at it like this, there's some crazy like drop in like advertisements over like like now like media, which is really like or like social media and stuff like that, which is something that's really concerning, especially when you're like building a new platform. Like you don't really want to lose like all that advertisement money because you don't really want to make your artists pay. And so it's definitely a really concerning thing, because I also think that like I'm assuming you guys do like a monthly based like payment fee to be a part of your program, right? Because if you just did like a here's $100, like that you aren't making more money. You're just making that immediate $100, and they're like, you know, you need to be able to sustain and grow. So I think something that I'm really worried about. Lana's not here to like be like, yeah, I'm also worried about this. But like something I'm specifically worried about is I don't know how to go into these communities, and I know it's energy and time, and I totally agree with you, but I just don't know how to like sit there in front of these artists who I know are struggling, and I know how they're building to basically be like, I need your money to be able to do this, something that could potentially work. Like there's no like validity in my argument because I don't know if it's going to work. So I just didn't know how you guys managed that when you were starting.
I think that when we were doing customer research, it was actually it was built into the Taconic Fellowship that we got our initial funding for the grant from. And they had a workshop about deep listening that was about trying to learn more about the community. So instead of kind of coming with the approach of, how can I convince you to give me money for this product that you don't know anything about? It was more of, what do you need? What is missing from your creative practice that I could possibly benefit? And then we went back, and that's how kind of we got into working on like the podcast from our events. We learned like, these are the conversations, these are the issues that like our community is concerned about and talking about. How can we bring that more to the forefront of what we're doing?
Very good. Anyone else? Carl?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a beautiful way to close it, and you know, and it's about like the value you give, right? So you're not being solicitous if you're giving value and stuff. And you guys, sorry.
I have one question that I ask every entrepreneur I speak with when they're sharing with groups. What is one book or resource that everyone that you believe should be following? It can be a book, it can be a blog, it can be a podcast, but what is something that you think every entrepreneur should be following?
Oh, I have a book. It's called You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero.
A great one.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's also an artist. She's a writer, and for a good 20 years of her career, she wasn't making any money. And she was like, oh, I don't need money to live. Oh, I can scrounge, it'll be fine. And then she was like, oh, wait, I have like medical bills. Oh, wait, my family needs my support paying for things, and I'm not in a financial position to do so. And so it's about a story about her mindset change around money and how she began asking for what she needed, and how that liberated her to really do the kind of work that she wanted to be doing when it came to her art.
Liz, do you have one?
Second Paige's recommendation.
Second, okay.
That's a very strong recommendation. That's amazing, and it ties right into what Brooke was just talking about. So that's beautiful. And I see the link is down there in the chat. And awesome.
I just threw it in.
Awesome. And then everyone, Liz put in the trial. So if you didn't get a chance to zap it and you're interested, definitely check that out. It's a month, it's free, and it's an amazing opportunity. And thank you both so much. You guys, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Guys, and have an awesome time today. This is a lot of really beautiful knowledge that people literally pay for. So have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was excellent. So I guess next we like to look at your homework, and I'm going to tell you guys this. So when we set up the schedule, we didn't quite realize that we had set it up so there's 2 Sundays back to back, or 2 Saturdays back to back. So we have this week and next week. And next week our speaker is about like business development and like how to grow a startup. And we'll send you some more information on him out shortly. But because of that, we're not going to have homework in between these 2 sessions because I don't want you guys to have to rush. Your homework will go out this week. We'll talk a little bit about it after, but in case we don't get through everybody today, we can do presentations next week as well. Carl, you have anything to second on that?
No, I think only that like we'll start right now, and then when Taurus joins us at 1, or like right before 1, we'll take a quick bio break, you know, so everyone can just like reset or whatever. And then we'll have Taurus, which is, he'll be an invaluable speaker, and we'll learn tons. And then after that, we can finish whoever we didn't get to, hopefully. So that's, I think it is manageable if we stick to, you know, the time frame. I think we could still hear all of you.
Yeah, when do you want it to, before Tara starts speaking, you want to break it like 12:55 to 1:05, something like that?
Yeah, or like I think even 5 minutes would be fine. I don't think we need, you know,
12:55 to 1.
Because
okay.
people, I mean, if people need to, they can always just, you know, turn off their cameras and, you know, grab a snack or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think 5 minutes is fine. So 12:55 to 1 will be the break.
Okay. All right. So Paxton has put in the chat, and our first group is CyberConnect.
Yeah, and I'm
How
going to
much time
time
are we
again.
giving? I'm sorry, how much time?
2 minutes.
Oh, no. 2 minutes, and I'm going to hold the timer up there so you can see when it starts to go off.
Okay. Hello. I'm gonna share my screen. Oh wait, sorry. Share screen has been disabled again.
Oh, Paxton, is there a way to make it so everyone can share screen?
I don't think I'm a host. I'm not seeing that option, but there is a way for the host to do it.
Can I do that? No, I can't. I can't.
Oh, got it. And okay, try to share screen now.
There we go. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So we are CyberConnect, the company name. Oh, this is a company name, and our mission or brand statement is that you know, there is a really strong connection that people have to the cyber world, especially the younger generations. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, people only delve deeper into this virtual world, forming even more of a cyber connection, hence the company name. The virtual world has hugely affected all of us, intermixing with our reality. So our goal is to allow people to express that kind of cyber connection through apparel and reflect how technology has integrated even more into our everyday lives. So our tagline is connecting to the cyber world through apparel. And I think that reflects our aim the most, which you know, I mentioned earlier and is on the slides show. So our color scheme is seen on the bottom right. The reason why we chose these colors is because these are colors that make up what you see on your phone screens, emphasizing on that cyber experience as well. So our fonts we've chosen are Roboto Mono and Makoto Glitch, Typeface, and Koyer, as these are the colors, obviously these are the fonts that you often see in computer programs that are behind the scenes of creating this virtual world. Okay, thank you.
Very nice. Good job. I like your tagline. I like it that it's short. I think it's really important. You know, taglines are really, the point of them is just do it, think different, something that, you know, people can remember quickly. You know, the mission's a little, I think you could pare it down a little bit. Generally, I'd like to try to delete everything that's unnecessary and get it to the tightest communication as possible, and then test that communication, but that's what we're doing now. And overall logo, apparel, I'm really glad that you created some physical mock-ups of your apparel, because when you present at the end of the semester, if you don't have something to show, the people will be like, that's great, you want to start an apparel company, but I haven't seen the apparel. I have no idea whether it's good or not. So it is really important that you have something you can show to like support what you're claiming. And I think that's important that it's there. So overall, I think you did a really good job. I will generally say I saw that Not Yet series had their kind of brand DNA in their pitch deck. Generally, you don't put brand DNA in a pitch deck. It's carried through it, like use the same fonts, use the same colors, but you don't have a page. It's like, and these are our fonts and colors. But you know, if for their case, they're talking about community building and creating a feeling, so it makes sense. But generally, you kind of want to convey it without being like, here's a page. Like what I shared from Eros, this is for everybody, that's a separate deck the company has. The company has an investor pitch deck. The company has a brand DNA deck. The company has a brand mission deck. And that's very common, that very rarely will you have one all-inclusive presentation that says everything you need to say about your company. But very nice work. All right.
I think we're done. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Also, if you can see, can you see that this is the second slide?
It says true, and now it shows pictures, woodwork pictures.
Okay, so it changed from the first one because that was
Yep.
the problem.
Or tour, excuse me.
Okay, cool.
I was dyslexic for a second.
So hello, we are Studio Chair and this is our brand's DNA. Studio Chair is furniture, architecture. Studio Chair is furniture, architecture, and everything in between. We create and define chair through our pieces, allowing it to go from a suffix to a concept of its own. Our goal is to bring working art and thoughtful design using renewable materials into people's life by putting the fun in functional.
Our mission is to design and build environmentally conscious pieces, leveraging new technologies and materials. We also want to create a more intimate relationship between user and product by embracing human imperfections and crafts, much like the wabi-sabi lifestyle.
Our brand is modern, clear yet bold, simple yet unique. Our goal is to create a name for ourselves to help us reach more customers that share our values, as well as a manifesto to promote and encourage a better way of utilizing and enjoying thoughtful design. Here are a few options we had in mind for our slogan, although nothing is set in stone yet. Furnishing for the future, future-oriented design, and designing with the future in mind.
Our brand's identity started with us creating a dictionary of our own to help us understand what we are criticizing, what motivates us, and what we want our name to stand for. Our dictionary defines furniture as equipment for living, architecture as a medium for humanizing systems, and finally studio chair as the means to blur the distance between the two. That helped us define studio chair as a design practice that creates and produces equipment for program spaces while being conscious of its surroundings.
Finally, here's a look at the process behind creating our logo and the graphic content representing our brand. We wanted it to be simple yet bold, visible, recognizable, and meaningful. The ... before ter allows it to merge with any design-related concept that wants to embrace the chair mentality. Thank you.
Very nice. So I have a question. Since you guys have already been doing this for a while, have you done this already? Did you create that dictionary and all that prior to this?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, I was like, wow, that's a whole lot of stuff, but that's great. Have you completed this? Did you do your logo ahead of this as well?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I was
Yeah,
going to say,
so-
Peter, it's good that you're pointing that out, because if I was a team seeing that they're this far ahead, I'd be like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you if that's what you're thinking. These guys had this beforehand, because this is incredible. And we're not expecting everyone to be like this far ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was like, wow, if they came up with all of this that fast, then that's amazing. So I think obviously it's super clear, it's super clean. Your vision is super clear. The only thing that I had a comment on was when you're trying to think of your tagline. I think that, like, I hate to say it, I think that some of those are great, but when you said we put the fun and functional, I thought that was so awesome. I was like, that is just like I'm stealing that. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but like, it's a great line. but I do think the shorter the better. So, but I think future-oriented design, but a lot of these sound really vague, and I think you have a much clearer understanding of your business and concept of your business. I think you could nail this down. I think these are all a little vague for what you're telling me. I mean, you wrote your own dictionary, so I think you can make, this is the only place where I was like, this could have a little bit of work done.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, very nice.
Excellent work, everyone, so far. Let's see, who's next? Rock solid?
It doesn't look like he works here.
Okay.
And I know
He
Rocky
was online. I saw him earlier.
Okay.
So
Well,
maybe
we
he
can-
dropped off.
Yeah, maybe. I think I saw him too. We can just go to Bestie though.
Okay.
Hi, I'm going to present. Now. Let me share. Okay. So hello, my name is Ariana Milan. I'm going to be presenting for Bestie. Oh wait, I'm sorry. On behalf of Noah, Lonnie, and I. So we begin. So this is Bestie. This is one of our kind of logo prototypes that we were thinking about. We have the bee and this swirl that kind of looped into a sort of an infinity sign that suggests interconnectingness forever. So as you can see, Bestie is created with concern for safety in mind. And growing up in the two environments, me being in an urban setting and Noelani coming from the country, we realized that there was a need for a safety product on the market that kind of resonated with both the concerns in the environments we were living in. This is where Bestie comes in. So our brand motto, our slogan was, our mission statement was Bestie is about more than safety. It's about feeling safe in your own skin. Together, we are giving the power back to those who need it most. Our brand tones and personality that we were hopefully aiming for is something that's safe, comfortable, playful, to name a few, with more demographics in mind, with people who have service jobs, who like to enjoy the nightlife, commuters, people who work in drive shares, ages between the young to mid 40s, 30s, low income. We want to kind of expand across all of that. Our logo, our slogan was meaning where you're at and where you're going, with just some formatting. And then just some information about the two of us. We were found concerned with the fun night ending terribly. We saw the current market and noticed that there was a gap, and just kind of elaborating on more of our background about ourselves and why we created Bestie. And here's some just design typefaces and prototypes for those who are interested. Thank you.
Very, very nice. I love the founder page. That definitely goes into your deck. That's always a page, traditional page in investor presentation decks when you're introducing a company, so people understand like where you guys are coming at this from and why you are the people to succeed at it. So I'm glad you guys did that. Everything else looks good to me. Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is your tagline is a little wordy. I mean, Carl, you can hop in here because I think that you know how important communication matters, and I was kind of reading it and it didn't stick immediately. So
yeah, exactly. I think it's just, first of all, amazing job. Like everyone that's gone so far, I'm just so impressed at how well you're going. And what Peter's saying is exactly what my instinct was. I'm like, you want something that you can just say without thinking about it. And this is meeting you where you're at and where you're going. So it's like these multiple concepts that's going up and down. And so I'm getting lost where you just want something you can drive through, so like if there's a way that you can crystallize that, then that would be really wonderful. Is that what, I think that's what you're driving at, Peter? That's what okay. Yeah,
totally.
So crystallizing that into what is the essence, so that if someone says, what exactly are you up for? Like, tell me in a second. And like, you can just bounce it back like that, then that drives home to people, like we have these You know, it's even like memorizing phone numbers. The reason phone numbers are like 7 digits, there's a reason for that. It's what your brain can retain without thinking about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like definitely leaning to you on the actor side of, you know, like just people reading it, you know, it's like your brain has to do a somersault in the middle of reading it. So
exactly.
I agree.
That's Peter, that's very poetic. That's I like doing, that's like such a beautiful, sorry, I don't mean to embarrass you, but like, I love that my brain had to do a somersault in the middle of it. That's exactly right. Yep. But I think you did a wonderful job. And you know what I would love is to hear a story. You know, I'd love to hear the story of why, like what inspired this, if you have a story. And I think that's something that stories just so deeply resonate with people. Like one time I was out, I didn't feel safe, and I wanted some kind of service to help me feel safer, and there wasn't anything available. And like, what was the emotional and the thoughtful inspiration for this? I would love to hear that. Because then we're attaching a narrative to it, like an actual story. We can be like, oh, wow. And that can, can get us emotionally invested as well and really like empathize with you.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the next step when we start talking about pitching and like how to pitch and resonate. And that's going to be, you'll hear Taurus talk about it. You're going to hear the next speaker talk about it. And then when we get into the day of talking about building your pitch decks, you're going to definitely be thinking about like, how do I engage my audience and how do I get them to resonate with what I'm doing? So, but great job.
Wonderful job.
All right.
We had sorry.
Oh, go ahead, please.
We had a little bit about our story in the founder thing. Like I've worked in transit advocation and like with the strap hangers campaign and accessibility and but yeah, we should touch on that more. I agree.
For the pitch, I think it's great in the founder's slide. It's really important, but when you pitch, you're going to want to lean into some of that to really connect it to the people, to your audience.
And hear it in your voice, not just like reading it on the screen, but like hear it with like intonation and your powerful voice,
Yeah.
Awesome job. Nice. Really impressed with everybody so far. Really great job.
Do we want to try to squeeze one more in, or do we want to try to break and then get everyone back?
That's a great one to end on. Let's end on that, and we can be back. The reason I think it's better to be back at 1 than 1:05 is because Taurus literally is joining us at 1, and I don't want to like him to join us and then have to wait 5 minutes.
Totally. And he could possibly be testing the motorcycle today at Floyd Bennett Field. I don't know if he's calling in from site.
His time is extremely valuable, so we want every minute of it. So everyone be back at 12:59, and we'll see you then.
Yeah. What up, Taurus?
What up? What up?
How are you? We're just on break right now. Sorry. Are you testing the bike today, or are you hanging at the office?
I'm at the office, but Ryan is coming over to shoot.
Oh, nice.
Maybe go for a ride. Looks blue, it's sunny.
Yeah.
Look fun.
Do it. So just to bring you up to speed, we're presenting brand guides right now. So they're kind of doing brand DNA, mission statements, one-liners. And then the next phase of the classes, they're moving into doing sort of a runway budget, figuring out, what they need to operate, start up, for their MVP and to get their ideas off the ground. And then they're going to be creating pitch decks and pitching maybe live at Pratt. Yeah. So that's where we are. And they've done customer analysis, market analysis already.
Cool. Well, I put something together. It's an amalgamation of a bunch of different presentations I had. So hopefully some nuggets.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
How much is a Q&A versus just a talk?
We had you for an hour. So, if you complete, if nothing else, I have questions that I can direct you to answer that I want you to talk about if you don't, because I know, I presented with you many times. So I'll be like, Taurus, what about this thing that happened? And you can be like, oh.
What about this thing that happened? Well, hopefully we get our parts out of Russia, man. That's going to be another one for the books.
Yeah. Well, that's, I'm like, I'm refraining from telling you, like, I'll text you the things that are going on, but we have things, everything's okay right now.
Yeah, I spoke to my family, and they have friends in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And what you hear from the inside versus the outside is very different.
I don't doubt that. So Taurus, Carl, you guys have met before, and Paxton is our graduate assistant that's helping organize and operate and keeping the trains on time.
It's good
Nice to meet you, Taurus.
How are you?
It's good to see you again, and thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Likewise. It's been a while. I think you're starting to lose track. Is it months or years or decades? What was it?
Well, it was
like 5 years ago, I think. Yeah, at least.
2018, I guess.
It was in person, right? It was because I remember I was supposed to make it and something came up and I couldn't make it. And I was like, I have a friend who probably knows more than me that could probably make it.
Yeah, it was the session before the very first pitch competition, and we couldn't have had a better speaker, because it was funny. Taurus was saying I was an introvert, and then suddenly I had to do like pitch after pitch after pitch. So I just had to figure it out, and then walked us through his journey and gave great guidelines. So it was really awesome.
All right, guys, can you give us some feedback that you are here? Just some thumbs up or whatever. Little emojis. There we go. Okay, people are here. Thank you. This is the world of Zoom. All right, so Taurus, the floor is yours. Please start with introducing yourself and then take it from there.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, guys. Pleasure to be here yet again. And when Peter asked me, "Hey, can you do this?" I thought it was going to be the presentation we typically do, which is about branding and storytelling, and he's like, "No, we already did that." I'm like, "Okay, so what should I be talking about?" It's like, "Whatever, just talk about your journey." So I put some fairly coherent thoughts together, hopefully, but I think there's, besides obviously everything that's is on your curriculum, and because the course is more focused towards identifying your why, I'm going to share some slides along our 5-year journey and what is sort of the root of the why, where it comes from, and also factoring in the times we live in, which are quite unusual, but kind of high level so you understand where I'm coming from. I spent almost 2 decades in fields of design now across everything from visual communication to branding, software development, industrial design, you name it. I had a design studio for about 10 years. Worked with probably 50 different startups, going from a napkin sketch to the first product. So I've seen way more failures than people would want to sort of knowledge, because usually you would just read about the successes on this company got sold, for 100 million, but rarely do we see the failures because people just don't like to sort of talk about that. But unfortunately, the nature of creating something out of nothing, the probability that you're going to fail is high. So you might as well just be comfortable. Being uncomfortable is probably the best lesson I've had. And I've had probably 5 of my own companies, and every time I started, I said, this is the one. This is going to be the one that goes off to the moon. And then when it didn't, you had to sort of go back and like, well, why not? So I think just don't, if this doesn't work out, and plenty of things will not work out, I think it's a healthy exercise to just mentally sort of prepare for yourself and don't see it as the end of the world. See it as just another thing you put under your belt, another experience, and don't sort of rush. So 5 years ago, I was kind of demotivated by the whole tech thing, another app saving the world, and kind of not seeing the direction that we should be using all the tech that we have available, and felt a stronger sort of sense of responsibility. Like, what can I do that has a bigger impact? And coming sort of from the world of industrial design, my passion was building vintage motorbikes. And I felt, okay, here's a way for me to sort of combine something that I'm really good at and do it at a bigger scale that actually has a potential to change a dying industry, which is sort of the automotive industry. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate, just raise your hand. So let me know if you see my screen. Yep, cool. It's a very high level to kind of create a little bit of context. Design is one of the first disciplines that was established. So even before people started speaking, before we started inventing things, before we realized, how to create music, the very first thing that sort of created modern civilization is we began shaping things. We began shaping tools, and it was not because we wanted to make something aesthetically pleasing. It was purely out of functionality. So for millions of years, we've just been crafting, using the environment around us to create objects. And then eventually it started building temples towards the moons and whatnot. And then in the last couple 200, 250, 300 years, civilization put itself on a completely different course, which is the industrial age. So we began extracting earth from all of the rich stuff that goes in it, the iron, oil, and started building machines. So this, I believe it's actually a real photo of London. They call it the Demon Mills. So basically, the city was completely transformed. It was just covered in thick black
slide
smog.
didn't change.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
What
Carl,
about
did it for you?
No, it's still on the title, the
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Resume share. Let me see. Why isn't it sharing is paused? Bring your shared window to the front.
Here we go. Now we can see it in a slide, the format.
I wonder if it doesn't. I'm just not gonna go full screen.
Okay, that looks good.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, this slide I covered, right? So where are we basically now? New age of machines, which is the industrial age that completely led to an explosion of people on Earth. So we went from a couple 100 million to 7 billion. And we began shaping objects for mass standardization and mass production for several reasons, because there was suddenly a lot of people, and a lot of wealth started getting generated, cities started getting built. So everyone was sort of joined into this mass participation and mass creation of things. Railroads were established, and led to the city that we right now. It was beautiful New York skyline to my left with a lot of steel that came from these factories. So we went from sort of traditional craftsmanship into shaping objects that were aimed for volume and scale. So to the left, you see that, that's not a thing you can easily reproduce. So we started sort of rethinking what's the form factor of objects around us and how can we make them as cheaply and as quickly as possible. So that created a completely different mindset, which is basically a mindset that we live on a planet with infinite amount of resources. So we started building bigger and bigger machines to just extract things from the earth at a larger and larger scale, and literally reshaping mountains so we can turn them into objects. Started doing the same thing with forests. So I think in the last 100 years, we've converted over 50% of forests into various paper products and furniture and so on. And now clearly we're realizing that this is not sustainable much longer. And we really have to rethink what are we optimizing for in terms of not just sort of building companies, but what's the purpose of creating something new? And does this thing even need to exist, or is it going to end up on a mountain and going to be there for a couple hundreds of years? So here's a photographer that started taking photos of birds, and clearly this is not the food anyone should be eating. And when there's more plastic in the oceans than fish, sounds like we're not headed in the direction we should be as a global species. So the concept of infinite growth based on finite amount of resources is fairly easy to grasp. But corporations to this day don't really live by those principles. They focus on how do we generate profit as quickly as possible, and then just don't worry about the side effects. So to date, there's really been no way for companies to account for the benefits and costs to society and environment. So typically when you look at a company, you're focusing on the bottom line. The bottom line means the profit. How profitable is this company? But the question is, well, what does this profit actually do? And does it do more harm to the environment than the actual cash being generated into the company? And I believe McKinsey did a study where they identified that 75% of Fortune 500 companies, if we factored in the environmental costs and damage these companies did to the environment, their profits would be almost wiped out. So if we factor in how many Coke bottles, and how many millions or billions it would take to basically get them out and recycle them, not to mention, the health side effects that this company produces, it would not be a profitable company. So basically what we have to start rethinking is, what does capitalism mean? And are we only optimizing for the bottom line, which is profit? So now, because of, we're becoming more and more aware about this, we understand, or at least we're asking questions, where do our things come from? There is a rise of something that is called the circular economy or conscious consumerism, where companies are not just focusing on generating profit, but also thinking about people and the planet. Pretty simple things to think. So what does it mean, people? It means that how do we produce our things and have an ethical supply chain? How do we not bring in child labor and building products? How do we make sure that everyone gets a fair wage? Very basic stuff, but that's not something the modern world been optimizing for. So the circular economy is also a very basic concept. It's basically whatever we choose to extract from Earth, let's find ways to put it back in a non-toxic way, or start designing and building our products that do the least amount of harm to people and the environment. So that's kind of one of the foundational stones of Tarform. So when I kind of left my design agency, I said, well, there are a million challenges out there that you can focus on. And do you want to do it because it's a fun thing to do, or do you want to do it because you truly believe that every day you put into this project, it does something for the better? So that's why I think an important topic to this is the responsibility. So what does it mean? Is how do you identify what do you like doing? And if you're into design, you're probably into aesthetics and creating things. But also we live in a time where there's millions of challenges to be solved. Like pick anything, geopolitical, environmental, social, educational. Combine it with what you should be doing. So what I see a lot of companies, and I think you talked about this, start with why, what is your purpose? So identify what are the challenges you would like to be working on and combine that with your passion. And that's sort of the conclusion I arrived at. And if you need help with that, UN has a good slide on 17 global sustainable goals. You can go and read about them. And, if you want to work on life below water, just figure out what are the challenges there and then sort of start, designing your product or project around that. So I would really encourage you guys, since you're very early on, like, don't just do something because it's cool or it looks nice, but really identify, is this making things for the better? Even if it's 0.1%, at least that you're contributing. So my personal, what I am good at, I identified fairly early. I just love doing design. So I remember the first product I saw, which was a Philip Stark juice press. Initially I didn't know what the hell this was, but then I saw, wow, this is a juice press, but it's also an art object. And that was kind of the first time where I saw, oh, art could fill a functional purpose. And just the simplicity of sort of drops falling into this thing led me on sort of lifelong exploration as what makes an icon? What's the difference between a product that ends up on a landfill and something that we consider sort of a classic? They might be made out of the same materials, but there's still something sort of inexplicable about that. Here's a world's oldest tea house in the world, founded in 1160 in Kyoto. So this company has been around for over 1,000 years. The very first Shelby Cobra sold for 13 million. It's a car made out of steel, probably a Fiat is made in more sort of professional environment than this car was made, but still if Fiat ends up in a scrap yard, but this thing sells for 13 million. So what does it mean to make a timeless product, and how do you infuse sort of the sense of soul into it? But today we live in a very fast-paced environment where we don't really think about what makes an icon. We don't think about longevity. And this is directly being reflected in the lifespan of an average company. So if you look at average S&P company lives for 15 years, and it's getting shorter and shorter because we have this short-sighted mindset that let's just build something, get it quickly out in the market, sell it. And I don't think that's the way to do. In Japan, there's 33,000 companies that are over a century old. So why is it that simply by changing a mindset of what it means, what are you optimizing for? You completely change sort of the environment and how people perceive your company and the product. So it seems that there's some universal principles of what makes a Ferrari or a tea factory last 600,000 years. So craftsmanship is typically involved. These products or companies are made with love for the product. So you're dedicating your energy to creating something that you're actually proud of. There is a thinking about timelessness, which means that you're not thinking, oh, this should get done in a year or 5 years. You're just working on it until you feel this is it reaches a sense of maturity. Not to say that there shouldn't be a sense of urgency, but there's a fine balance when you sort of say, oh, let's get it out quickly because we're gonna have to capture a larger market. So there has to be a balance there. The strive for perfection. So someone said, you can strive for perfection, you will never attain it, but at least strive for it. Make sure that everything you do, every new iteration, you make it better and better. And ultimately it becomes heritage, something that you would want to pass on to your children, or making sure that it lasts for longer than 5 years. So one of the challenges that I chose to is the transportation So this is a photo of Easter parade in New York City, 1900. So the red circle is one of the first cars. And then just 13 years later, there's one horse and only cars. So in 10 years, the way people moved around completely shifted. And nobody would ever expect that all of these horse carriages were going to be replaced with these machines. So I believe in the next 10 years, we're going to go through one of the biggest sort of shifts in the way people move because of electrification and lightweight mobility. For many reasons, there's enough data to say that internal combustion engines aren't good for our health, for the air we breathe, and also keep extracting oil from the ground is not sustainable. So I'm sure everyone here is aware of the benefits of electrification. So on weekends, I spent a lot of time building vintage bikes, and here are a couple of BSAs and Triumphs that I found upstate in New York. And sort of what drew me in is just taking these machines, taking them apart, rebuilding them. And then about 5-6 years ago, I was looking at this motor, which is to the left. You know, the concept of an internal combustion engine, that it just explodes. And then the heat being, you know, converted into motion just felt so archaic. And that we're still designing our vehicles like that. You know, from century-old techniques, it was almost comical. So I decided, okay, well, how can I combine what I love doing, which is, you know, giving shape to these machines, but do it through 21st century sort of a mindset in terms of sustainability. And that was kind of the origin of Tarform. So that's one of the bikes I've built, and I wanted to kind of preserve the timelessness and the sort of vintage feel of these bikes from the 60s and bring it into the future. But not only sort of create an electric motorcycle, but always had this thought in the back of my mind, like, what would it take to create a modern day icon? Just like a motorcycle was in the 60s, I felt that the motorcycle design today kind of lost its appeal. A lot of bikes are just covered in plastic fairings. There was less art involved in that. So the brief was, let's build something that has the potential to be a vintage bike in 50-60 years. And what would be the necessary ingredients to instill into this design? This is typically what people think about motorcycle riders today. You know, average Harley rider is 54 years old. So we kind of knew that we had to create a completely different brand, a different sort of feel of what it is to be on the bike, and not target to what people typically think about Harley riders. So that kind of became the Tarform design ethos. So ethos is a set of guiding beliefs or ideals that characterize a community, a nation, or ideology. And I think each one of you should really think, what is your ethos? So typically, your ethos is your set of principles that you personally believe in. And it's pretty obvious that you should take whatever you believe in and put it into your project and your company. So try to just write down a couple of words. This is what's important to me. This is what matters, and try to get that into your product. So our ethos is art, which is, how do we preserve the spirit of craftsmanship? There's not a lot of things that are made with quality today. How do we use technology to create an empowering experience? And most of the technology we use today is disempowering. You know, people spend hours looking at social media, hours watching Netflix. It's an amazing piece of tech, but I don't believe we're using it in the right direction. And ecology, how do we start building products around us that do the least amount of harm to the environment? So during the sort of the prototyping phase, there's a lot of stuff that the industry typically doesn't want to share, especially the automotive industry. And that is how toxic the manufacturing methods are and how toxic materials they use. And this is a crazy number, that the real impact of the product occurs during its creation and not use in terms of carbon emissions. So we're taught that, you know, we should go recycle, drive electric cars, but in reality, most of that carbon emissions happens during the production of a product and its use. Obviously, it depends on the industry, but roughly 80-20. So for example, making a 2-gram computer chip requires 1.3 kilos of fossil fuels. 1.3 kilos is in pounds, like 4 pounds. So that's 650 times the resources, right? So clearly we got to start rethinking what's the amount of energy that goes into making something versus the output that we're getting. So e-mobility solutions is great, and what Tesla has done is basically reshaped an entire industry. But there's more to do, and not just putting a battery into a vehicle, but also started rethinking the entire manufacturing process, which was an important part of what we started doing, is to think, can we use natural materials? Can we move away from toxic paints and primers and so on? So I believe there's a sort of new way to look at design, and not just as a sort of superficial thing that, oh, this thing is beautiful, but how do we use design to adopt a more sustainable mindset, and again, merge the sort of what we perceive as just being form and shape and infuse it with a sense of responsibility. When people typically think about eco-friendly, this is kind of what people have in mind. You know, it's burlap sacks and cardboard. So eco-friendly is not considered elegant or sexy. And I think that's one of the biggest things that prevents people from becoming green, because we're used to have beautiful products around us, they're premium and luxury, but they're not sustainable. So we kind of knew that in order for us to get people inspired about ecology and just sustainability, obviously the product had to initially create some sort of reaction that get people to listen. This slide should have been a little bit earlier, but anyway, 70% of all Land Rover is still on the road today. Why? Not because it's an amazing car. Most people who have a Land Rover tried it. It's just a refrigerator and wheels, but these things are worth a lot of money. Same thing with the Ferrari Dino. Beautiful car, but again, they're all made of the same things. So our design was, well, how do we create something that's long lasting and iconic? And about 5 years ago, I started doing the first prototype, literally the back of a shop, just welding. It was me and William, mechanical engineer, and one electrical engineer. And we started creating basically the blueprint. What should the bike look like? What should it be made out of? Took us about 2 years to build the first prototype. This is our first taillight that's working. We're like, oh wow, this thing might actually work. 3 days before our launch, so the whole group came with their old school dinosaurs, and inside, you know, we're working on these 2 electric bikes that set out to reshape an industry at the shop in Brooklyn. And then we launch it at New Lab, 2018. So here's a truck that comes up and picks both of the bikes over. And like 200 people come to the launch, and initially people just run over and start touching it, which was kind of an interesting thing. It's like, what is it about this thing that you want to sort of feel and experience texture? And that was kind of the first validation. I'm like, oh, okay, there is something into this product that is kind of different, and gave us just more inspiration to keep going. And then a month later, we get an email from Peterson Automotive Design, Peterson Automotive Museum, which is world's largest car museum, and they're doing a electric exhibition. So they said, please bring the bike over. We want to sort of highlight everything that's up and coming. And finally, the bike was positioned right in front of the Shelby Cobra. So that was a kind of a trippy moment where just a year ago, I was in the shop in Brooklyn, and suddenly this iconic thing that was big inspiration, and our bike is sort of in front of it. So the whole idea is, how do we build machines powered by clean technology that are designed to be upgraded and built to last? And what does it really mean? It means that modularity is a big component to it. So how do we build products that are either continuously upgraded as technology evolves? So we toss millions of iPhones every year. They're perfectly fine, but that product is not designed to be upgraded. It's a sort of a product architecture fixed on just this one expression. So from day one, we felt, how do we make sure that this bike evolves not just from the form factor, but from the powertrain? So we sort of split it into two main buckets, which is modular shape, where you can keep upgrading the looks of the bike just by changing a couple of key components and upgrading the platform. If new battery comes out, you can upgrade the battery and so on. So instead of sort of having the static mindset of vehicle development, how do you make it more dynamic? And the process is obviously reducing waste, both on our internal side, that we don't have to redevelop a vehicle every 3 years, that is typically normal in the automotive industry, but also for the consumer to feel, over 20 to 25 years, maybe you can have 7 different bikes. The age of personalization is a huge thing. So I think people are putting more demand on having something that's more personal and adding sort of their own touches to the bike in terms of materials, colors, seat upholstery, graphics, and so on. So we designed one platform that has sort of 2 expressions. one of them is a scrambler that you see to the right, and the left is a cafe racer. Some tech. So 2-wheelers are pretty dangerous. Most people who've been doing 30 miles on a Revel, even though it's a cute, approachable scooter, it's still a vehicle. So we felt a sense of responsibility. Let's make this experience as safe as possible. So we added a blind spot alert through haptic feedback where the seat vibrates. And then there's tons of other options on using tech to basically create a more confident riding experience. So the materials, also pretty straightforward. We realized if we're bringing a physical product to life, it's not just a nice thing to use natural materials, it's our responsibility. So we spent years going through different suppliers trying to find alternatives to toxic vinyls and PVC leathers. We wanted to avoid carbon fiber, glass fiber, and eventually developed a method of plant-based fiber, which is based on flaxseed. And this is our first prototype that Grant, our sustainability guy, is trying out. And the black liquid is algae infused with resin. And that was sort of the first sort of tangible proof that, yeah, we can actually make a composite part that's biodegradable and recyclable and meets our high performance requirements. So that's kind of the result of it. So after that, we felt, okay, I think this has potential. We found a supplier in Canada that said, yeah, I'm willing to experiment on this. So we sent him the materials, and then ultimately ended up with the biggest part on the bike, the side panel, out of this material. And you see it being separated here, flaxseed weave, bio-based resin, and algae pigment. So our idea is replace old petroleum-based plastics eventually with either natural composites or other types of bioplastics. But at least this sort of validated that, yes, it's possible to do that. So the big black sort of panel you see, that's the flaxseed. The top part is hand-shaped aluminum. And our goal, we don't know when we're going to reach it, but ultimately to build a bike that is zero waste, which is a huge commitment, because we have to rethink the entire wiring harnesses. They're all coated with pretty toxic plastics. So there's a lot of work to do, but what we want to do is at least sort of push the industry in the right direction and start having these conversations. And just in the couple of years since we've been around, we see Polestar, a Swedish company, also doing flaxseed weave. We see other companies that are, embracing more sustainable materials. For the seats, we found a company in Mexico that is using a plant-based leather made out of nopal cactus. This stuff, the problem with natural materials today is that still no one meets or exceeds the properties of traditional vinyl. So plastics are amazing. They're incredibly durable, and we basically, built our modern economy on plastics. The problem is that it just takes too long for them to get back to Earth. So even though we're trying to find natural materials, we're also communicating with the customers and saying, hey, this might crack, this might look weird in 2 years, but if it does, send the seed to us, and at least you're part of the evolution, because it's a new process, and it's going to take the industry a while to compete with traditional petroleum-based plastics. So the question we constantly ask is, can technology and nature coexist? And what does it mean? You know, if we live in the city, we rarely think about the nature that's around us. But I think in order to not just build sustainable transportation, but sustainable cities, we have to start thinking again in terms of circularity. Is how do we generate as little amount of waste as possible? And I believe there's no bigger source of intelligence than nature, because it's been shaping itself for billions of years. So one of the most exciting fields I think that's happening in design is the biotech, and sort of looking at different processes of bacteria, how it grows, how there's a bacteria that breaks down plastics. So instead of just hardcore focusing on technology and software and making everything autonomous, we should also be looking towards nature. The bodywork is, we're using old school buck building technique, which takes a lot of time, which is great for sort of the first versions of the bike we do, is a very sort of bespoke craftsmanship approach. Then our challenge is figuring out how to do this at scale. So we're still experimenting, but we felt it was really important in the beginning to sort of show that this is not a mass manufactured piece, especially if people want to treat it as an heirloom. And what we're doing is actually not that new or groundbreaking. One of the first Model Ts, Henry Ford was working with biomaterials, and this car had 60 pounds of soybean, and they used flaxseed-based paints. Then in 1941, Ford launched a biological car, which was made out of wheat, hemp, flax, and ramie fibers, and it weighed 1,000 pounds less than the steel car. So imagine, this was 80 years ago. But then the steel industry and the petroleum industry said, yeah, that's cool. You know, steel is abundance. It's stronger. Let's do this. So now we have to sort of retrace and start rethinking, what are we building things out of? And it is not that much more effort. We also chose to build in Brooklyn, and not to sort of outsource it to some place, because we believe there should be a connection with sort of the production of the product, and transparency, and where it comes from, how we're building this. So we want to highlight sort of everything that goes into this, and show that it is possible to have a shorter sort of feedback loop with the production of the product and where its customer base is. So our idea is to have smaller sort of assembly spaces in Brooklyn, where we build the first versions of the bikes, the second one in LA, and see which direction we're going to grow. So is it possible to reposition the motorcycle as a cultural icon? I believe there's huge potential in any industry to sort of look at outdated ways that that we just take for granted, that no longer serve us. So I encourage everyone to sort of look into the industry that you're interested in, the products that you work on, and kind of map out the landscape, and use something called first principle thinking. First principle thinking is essentially not just accept things for the way they are, but just like go back to logic and ask questions. Why are we still doing things like this? Is there a better way? And that's basically the question Elon Musk have been asking, when it came to Tesla, when it came to SpaceX, is why keep doing things the way things always been done? And there's rooms for improvement. To kind of round it off, leave you guys with a thought, is a quote from George Serafim, who's a professor at Harvard Business School, where he said, by shifting the pursuit of profit away from negligently creating problems to purposefully creating valuable solutions for the world, it will redefine success so that its measure is not just money, but the positive impact it will make during our lives. So just think of, what's the impact you want to do, and find what you love doing and go for it. That is it. Questions, thoughts, much welcome.
First question from Brooke. Taurus.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. So I think what you're doing is awesome. I love the fact that you're like really pushing this environmental stuff. I guess I have two questions. I love all the electric car stuff. I think it's really fascinating. I grew up with all boys, so like the car, like I need that whole like I know a lot about it. And I guess like my only real question on the electricity side is you plug this into a wall, right? So 61% of energy is like fossil fuels and stuff like that. The other 20 is nuclear energy. Only 20% is renewable energy resources. Are you worried about that? Like, is that something like, because you know what I mean? Like you're building this as sustainably as you can, but you can't really control the fact that like you're plugging it into a wall in the end. So are you worried about that? I guess like when you're marketing it to people, if they, you know, because it's just a bigger tailpipe, right? Like in that sense. So I just,
yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And it doesn't keep me up at night because I don't really have control over it. Yeah. But the direction, it's headed in the right direction. So more and more energy is becoming renewable from different sources, and countries, US is a little bit slow when it comes to transition towards renewable energy. If you look at Europe, you know, Germany has, I believe, 40% of it comes from renewable. Holland is even more, and there's more and more initiatives happening from the governments to say, look, we have to move away from fossil fuels. So I don't know how long that transition is going to take. You know, maybe it's going to take 10 years, 15, but at least it's moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, that transition is mainly in the hands of policymakers and governments and less in the private industry, unless the consumers start setting demands. And, you know, like if 100 million people called Con Ed and said, look, I want my energy to be renewable tomorrow, otherwise I'm going to cut off my, you know, energy.
Yeah,
they're going to say, cool, let's do it.
No, that's really, I guess my other question is, who are you marketing this towards? Because I know that, again, I come from a really big car family, so like this was really interesting. I have a million questions. It's the only opportunity I'll ever have to like ask someone in this industry.
You can email me anytime.
I know that like the average motorcycle user is in like their late 40s, early 50s, and like I don't necessarily know the numbers on people that are really focused on in this industry that are focused on sustainability, especially in that age group. And I just didn't know like how marketing this product was for you. I just think that's
yeah, we haven't really done any sort of huge efforts in marketing it, but rather inviting people who are interested and seeing who are these people. So my assumption when we launched was that it's going to be, you know, traditional motorcycle people who ride and think, oh, you know, here's a cool electric bike. But 30 to 40% from what we see is people who never had a motorcycle before, and they never even thought about getting a bike. When they sort of discovered us, they said, well, you know, I want to get into this scene because I think a lot of people are just intimidated by the internal combustion motorcycle. You know, it's loud, it's heavy, it spews out all of this toxic. And I remember my first experience on the bike. I'm like, what the hell is this? This thing shaking between my legs, you know? So, and also the culture. I think a lot of people don't want to be perceived as like the traditional Harley biker. So it seems that our brand and just the design is more accessible to a different kind of rider, someone who doesn't have to be sort of diehard biker. But yeah, we've been very fortunate. We're getting a lot of features. So we haven't really done any, you know, very targeted marketing campaigns, but rather sort of let our community evolve organically. How it's going to be in a few years, we'll see. Maybe there's going to be, you know, a new kind of rider, basically.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was just really fascinated. Again, I came from a car family, so I was really excited to hear what you guys had to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? I have questions for you, Taurus.
Oh, dear.
People may have said you were crazy for even trying to take on something as ambitious as starting a transportation design company and manufacturing, let alone from Brooklyn, let alone with new technologies. You had to go out, you know, some ideas you can self-finance, some ideas you have to raise money for. Can you talk a little bit about the process of raising money for an idea that is sort of untested, unproved, and also so large?
Yeah, it's so obviously fueling your dreams is a very energy intensive process. And I didn't start out with $60 million like Elon Musk. I started out with like $5,000, and that did not get me very far in terms of building a motorcycle. And in hindsight, I think, you know, a healthy mix of sort of ignorance with determination and just like pure belief, you know, that this is possible. And our first investor was, he basically put a little bit of capital and said, yeah, I think you can do it. I'm like, really? So finding people who believe in you is so important, especially when there's no evidence that you're going to succeed. And, you know, most of you are fresh out of school. You're going to say, well, what do I know about this and this? I don't have enough experience. I'm not an expert in this. The moment you start doubting, that's the moment you realize you're doomed. Because if you have even an ounce of doubt and you're going to go and try raise money, that person is going to see that doubt, and nobody's going to give you money if you're doubting yourself. So Gary Vee said, you know, don't convince people, have conviction. And if you have conviction that this thing is going to work, you're going to attract people into that will support your mission, whether they're going to give you money or just people who say, look, I think, you know, if you keep doing this, you're gonna get to that point. But it's been huge challenges for us because of the reason that we're doing something that's never been done before in an industry that doesn't exist. Basically, raising capital has been a nonstop thing, and we have about 35 investors. So it was mainly sort of for them to buy into the vision, and then as you progress, as you start showing, you know, prototype, and people gather more and more belief, and they say, well, this might actually be possible. So yeah, I think the biggest insight is go for it. I don't know.
Does someone else have a question? I'm sure you guys have more. I have more questions that I'm just going to lead you on to talking about that I know they may want to ask if no one asks. So another question that I would have if I had no insight into this company prior is, so you must be like an expert mechanical engineer and electrical engineer and software guy and understand business really well, because to build all this, you'd have to know all of that, right? Or what? How do you tackle these challenges that you may not know that you have to fill in?
Yeah. Yeah, there's always this thing, you know, jack of all trades, or do you want to be an expert in one? And I think it totally depends. Depends on, I see it more of, you have a map, right? If you don't know how to read it, it doesn't matter what tools you have, you're gonna get lost. So at least understand how to read the map. And if you understand how to read the map, you could understand, well, you know, here's 4,000 feet elevation. That's the temperature. What do I need to bring onto this climb? And same thing, you know, building a business, you're going into an unknown territory. If you have the awareness to at least sort of map out, like, this is what I'm getting myself into, and do a very honest assessment of your skills, of your shortcomings, and say, this is what I'm good at. This is something that I suck at, and try to find, you know, people who you can fill. So in my journey, I'm not a numbers guy. I hate doing numbers, Excel spreadsheets. So I said, I need to find a co-founder that is the numbers guy. And that was my co-founder. You know, we went our separate ways after a couple of years, but in the beginning, you know, he allowed me to focus on what I'm good at. And then he did what other sort of, you know, building blocks that are required to get into a company. So I'm not saying you should be an expert, but you should at least have one discipline that you are really good at. And my discipline was design. I knew that I could for sure design the bike. I did not know how to build it, and I spent probably a year just like reading on YouTube, what is a volt, what is an amp, like the basics of electrical engineering, basics of mechanical engineering. And instead of watching Netflix, I was looking at these professor talks just to map out the landscape so I can have the awareness about this discipline, which led me to being able to properly communicate what I needed in terms of recruitment. So then I could sort of create the brief and say, okay, I need an electrical engineer with experience in high power electronics, because if you don't know what you need, you're not going to find the right person. So I'm not saying you should like learn deeply, quantum physics, but at least understand the terminology, so you kind of understand how the landscape operates, and don't get afraid of it. I mean, I think a healthy exercise is like constantly reframe what you're working on. And I remember when people were like, this is crazy, it's a vehicle made out of 2,000 parts. Where do you even start? And I was thinking, well, if we build a rocket to put someone on the moon, as long as it doesn't defy the laws of physics, it's got to be possible. So try to compare yourself where you are, even if it feels like, oh, this is crazy big and overwhelming. Someone has done something that's more crazy and more overwhelming, and that kind of brings you down to a more approachable level.
Does anyone have any questions based on that answer? Sorry, the group is quiet. Go ahead. Yes, Jose, please.
I think my first question is, I think you had kind of talked about it, but when you're partnering someone, I think like more of a specific answer on like, how do you find someone you're partnering, you want to partner with, and making sure that that person is going to be a good fit, but then like in a relationship with someone, if you find something out about that person that's not something that you think is healthy for the company, how do you navigate those kind of relations?
Yeah, great question. And interpersonal relationships, building a company is, and sometimes they're even more important than like your family or who you're with, because you're going to be spending majority of your waking time with this person. So you better make sure this is the person you want to be around, and not just be around, but that you're both contributing. So most cases I've seen why companies don't work out is, one, they run out of capital. Two, they run out of motivation. Number three, a conflict amongst the early team or the co-founders. And I've had a fair share number of that, where you allow it to go so far that both people don't have the courage to address it early on, because you're just so focused on sort of creating this thing. So my advice would be as transparent as you can early on, and say, first identify that you both are sitting in the same boat, because it's so easy that you're rowing in one direction, the other person is rowing in the other, and you're just going in circles until eventually you're like, oh, hold on, why are you, which way are you going? So set out like, this is where we want to be in a year. This is where we want to be in 2 years. What happens if the company gets successful? Who do you see yourself being? Do you want to be CEO of the company? Do you want to be, run the engineering department? These questions, I don't see that often. And really establish like, this is what I like to do, this is what I don't like to do. And then obviously you can't, in the beginning of a company, you can't just do what the stuff you like doing. It's impossible. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff, but at least so you both, see what are your individual roles and responsibilities. Then a lot of it is just gut feeling and experience. You can't replace that. There will be people that initially you're like, this is amazing, this is the person I need, and then a month later it's like, oh my god, why am I doing all the work and this person doesn't do anything? And I've had really good friends that I've started companies with that I no longer speak to, because once you get into a business environment, the relationship completely changes. So also I haven't seen too much evidence of successful co-founders that were friends before, simply because like, you need to set boundaries. You need to set clear expectations. Where do you find them? Hard to say. I mean, people around you, go out and network. Just share where you're working on in different settings. And I mean, school, you're surrounded by people, but I think the key is communication. And in order to communicate effectively, first you have to identify what do you want.
I'll second some of this. I mean, I've been doing this a long time too, and I've had the same thing. I've had started businesses with friends that I'm not friends with anymore. And I've also, seen businesses deteriorate and all the same things. But I will say one of the #1 questions I get from startup founders is, where do I find a co-founder? And I always encourage them not to go looking for a co-founder, but go looking for someone that they want to work with and they like working with. And before ever saying something like, I'm going to give you equity in my company because you're so desperate to have a co-founder, work with them a little bit, get to know them, make sure they're a good fit, be upfront that you are looking for that, but don't just back up the truck, offer them equity, and then find yourself in a situation where you have to divest them from the company and strip them of equity, because that gets super tricky. And that goes into Paxton's question about, do you create business contracts for partnerships, which I'll let you answer, but I think there's a bigger thing there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'll just answer it. So business contracts for founding partnerships, if you own an LLC, you can give someone ownership in the business. And if you own an incorporation, the incorporation, whether that has stock shares that are granted, which give people ownership. So if it's an LLC, they directly own part of the business. The tax burden of that business passes through to the owners. If it's incorporation, they have equity, but you make promises to people, and there's a lot of ways to structure this, which is like vested equity over time, which means the more they work, the more equity they get to a certain percentage. But these are the less poetic and more the more grungy parts. There are, I guess, as artists, we say, artist creatives, we're like, this is the parts we don't like to think about, but we have to think about, right, Taurus?
Totally. And, it's also slightly, there's a cultural difference. Like I grew up in Sweden, and way less legal and contracts involved. Like you begin doing business under good intentions. And then I moved to New York, and nothing but contracts. So you got to find a way, because also if you set the tone too early, and your legal agreement is too aggressive, you're already off to the wrong start. Where there's been relationships where it's like, oh well, do you expect me to take over your company? And the lawyer comes in and create, like, nothing has happened, but the environment is already toxic. So that's also where just being transparent about the expectations plays a huge role.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's a big question for founders and early startups. Does anyone else have another question before I lead Taurus into one more question I want him to answer for you guys? Anyone?
Now's your chance if you're wondering even about, so we've been talking very high level, broad questions, but if you have just a specific one, as you're developing your idea, even going back to like, how do I know if this is worth doing, an ideation question, anything, because we have someone who's really done a lot and brought what started as an idea so far. So there's no bad question.
Yeah, I have a question. Are there any conferences you would recommend going to find these connections and network as a starting entrepreneur?
I don't know if I have a recommendation of specific conferences, but just get out there. Go out and find the environment where the people interact. A lot of it is going to suck. A lot of it is going to be boring. A lot of times you get to come home and like, well, that was a waste of time. But it's still going to get you more confidence. And the classic things is like 1,000 no's gets you 1,000 times closer to yes. So don't try to like, oh, here's the conference, I'm going to find my co-founder. It's not going to happen. And yeah, my presentation was very high level. This is like 1%, right? The 99% is the daily grind. It is the details, the details, the hustle. But from my experience, it's the 1% that is that spark, that lights the flame. There's no way around, no matter how high level ideas or concepts you have about changing the world, like it's the work that matters. You know, it is, that thing is like, oh shit, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to keep doing this. And in that space, that is what separates mediocrity from greatness.
So now there's two things I want to finish with. One is a question that'll take a little longer, and then one's a really quick question. So the first is, everyone here are young entrepreneurs that have ambitions of learning about pitching and starting businesses. So, you know, I know that you went through a lot of, you went to trial by fire and just pitched all the time and learned how to pitch. And I think talking a little bit about that and getting comfortable talking about yourself and your business, especially as a creative, when you kind of maybe more shy, how you tackle that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly like you said that. It's just take any opportunity you can to explain your idea. And many times it's not even for who's listening, it is for yourself. It is for you to hear, to articulate your thoughts and ideas. And the more you do it, the more clarity you get in your own thinking as well. And the more clarity you get, the easier it is for people to understand whether they want to be part of this or not. So my advice is, even it seems like this is pointless, you know, just go out and do it. And I used to go to these crummy meetups with, you know, $2 sliced pizzas at like Henry's Pub Midtown, just pitching and talking to all the kids that also just came to New York, and everyone is there like, this is going to be the next Facebook, you know. And many times it's fun, and many times it's like, oh, this is the worst. But then there's going to come a day when you're like, huh, I'm no longer that nervous. I'm able to articulate my thoughts more clearly, and that keeps you going. So get out of your comfort zone.
Does anyone have a question about that? Okay, last question. This is what I've been finishing off with all my speaking engagements for all different classes I teach. One book or website or podcast or something that every young entrepreneur should read or follow to improve their entrepreneurial journey.
It's a good one. I should have thought about that. One book, podcast. Let's see, what could it be? There's so many. I don't know. I think maybe one of the books that sort of gave me an insight when I was a kid, Innovator's Dilemma sticks out. You know, just because it has like a different way of looking at things, and it talks a lot also about failure. Like, you know, just don't be afraid.
Great one. Thank you.
That's one we definitely recommend as well. So 100%. And then a final question I have. Thank you so much. This was incredible. And would it be okay for anyone to contact you if they had questions, or if they simply just want to say thank you, or if they're interested in learning more about your company?
Yeah, of course. Drop me an email to taurus@tarform.com, and I'll be sure to get
I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, that's perfect. Great.
Cool. Thank you so much. I wish everyone good luck.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. I hope that was super informative. You know, I've known Taurus a long time, and I have to say, like, of all the people I've ever worked with, his ability to like present and connect with an audience with how he talks about what he's doing has always been like super impressive to me. Normally I have Taurus teach how to pitch because he's so good at pitching. But today we kind of just decided to focus more on like his journey, and he, you know, he had to answer a lot of hard questions in building a company that really requires a lot of capital and is super time intensive. It's not like you fail in 6 months, you know, you're going to build it for five years. And if you fail after 5 years, it's going to be a weird feeling. So
I also really liked, he was a great role model, like that he was like just very calm, very thoughtful. I think he gives off that authentic presence when we're talking about how to present. And like, Brooke, you asked such a great question, and it was a very difficult question. So it was like going straight for one of the most difficult things.
Sorry, yeah, I was just
No,
really
I'm
curious.
not.
Yeah. I just really wanted to know. I never thought I'd have an opportunity to ask.
Yeah, no, it's like right up there with like, you know, what about like conflict minerals for batteries, right? Like it's like those kinds of questions, you know, and those are probably the hardest questions to answer. And what I loved is he didn't get defensive. And this is something that we all can learn. Instead of getting defensive, he thanked you for your question. He said that's a thoughtful question. He validated you, and then he answered it the best he could. And I think that's what I would say is one of the biggest things, the mistakes that I see young entrepreneurs, especially, or just any human beings make, is when you're in the pitch competition and a judge asks you a challenging question, and, you know, like we all have, you know, feel like, oh man, like I don't have the perfect answer, or you might even get triggered or something, and to just like take a pause, take a breath, and then just assume, even if it's not true, in this case it is, but even if it's not, that the person's coming from a good place, and then it's, even if they're not, right? Like not in your case, but if another person was trying to like be provocative, still answer them as if, you know, they had a good intent, and that will just come across so well. And it's a great skill to have, whether it's entrepreneurship or just life and anything that you're talking to.
And I think the other thing that to take away is like when we talk about the amount you pitch and the amount you talk about your idea, the more you talk about your idea, I mean, Taurus has answered that question before. Maybe not exactly like that, but you know, I get questions when I present about the company about exactly what Carl just said, like, where did the raw materials for your batteries come from? How do you know it's ethically mined? You know, these are very common things, but if you are scared to pitch, you may not know what comes up. But if you're pitching all the time, you're going to learn the main questions that people will have, and you'll get better at being able to answer them. And if sometimes someone brings a question to you that you don't have an answer for, that gives you the opportunity to go find that answer. And that way, the next time it comes up, that you'll have an answer for it. And that comes up a lot. Like the big one is with investors. Investors a lot of times know more about your business than you, because they've invested in other businesses like it, or they've looked at comparable businesses and they've done deep dives and research on it. So you may have an investor someday ask you a question that they already know the answer to, just to see if you know the answer to it, just to see if you've done your homework. And if you haven't, that's a red flag. Mary.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You keep talking about pitching, and I still have no idea like about the whole structure, how it should be, or it's not like specifically the structure for a pitching presentation, or we will have this discussion later. Like
absolutely,
yeah,
100%. You're so right, and we don't want to get too far ahead because we're still focusing on making sure you understand the fundamentals, which then go into, and then Peter, actually, he's an expert just like Taurus on pitching, and he's created this wonderful kind of system to show the perfect like 10 slides for a slide deck, what you want on slide 1, what you want on slide 2, you know, how to really maximize it for a 4-minute presentation, right? So there's
I can't take credit. Taurus actually created.
It's awesome though, and it's you know, Mary, it's exactly what you're talking about, because it makes it like this like great structured format so that you don't, it takes the guesswork out, you know, and we walk you through it.
And I mean, I know that you're in another one of my programs, and we're going to do it, so you're going to get to do it. And pitching is, you know, you get to pitch things all at different times. So being able to pitch different products, but yeah, there's a format, there's a system. Everything we've been doing for homework is to have your pitch as clean as possible. So when you go and look at what is on these pages, you're going to say, oh, I've already done that. Oh, I've already done that. Oh, I've already done that. And you just have to make a nice clean presentation and fill in the information per slide.
Yeah, so you'll get a format that shows on this slide competitive matrix, on this side financial projections, on this side affinity mapping, you know, like, so it takes you through the steps and you'll be very prepared. so that you can.
It's actually even less like less complicated. It's going to be like, yeah, competition, market, product, yourself, how much money you need, why the hell they should give it to you, and thank you. I think the one we saw from Not Yet was excellent.
Do you think that's also a great way to make portfolio like this, the same structure, like really short and all of this stuff?
Yeah, I will say the one thing about it is understanding pitches, like the proper way to create pitch decks, whether they're investor pitch decks or product pitch decks or whatever, is important because it's what the industry is used to seeing. So like if you were like, I have an idea, my first question is going to be, send me your deck. And if I get this sort of like rambling Word document or some sort of document that doesn't make any sense, or, so understanding like sort of what people look for in these things is really, really important. And that's what we're going to sort of get into in the next 2 weeks. Does anyone else have any other questions about the speaker or anything? I do want to bring up one thing. Jose, you were the one who asked about partnerships, right? Is that correct? Are you there?
Yeah, I also do have a question, so I can ask after.
So yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is, we talked about contracts. If you don't think you can trust someone, like just initially, you probably shouldn't work with them. I want to make that super clear. I have a lot of friends that work in licensing of design ideas and invention, and they don't really sign NDAs, and they all hang out together and they're all friends and they talk about ideas. And there's sort of this known like world of trust. And they kind of have always said, I won't work with the company even if there's an NDA, if I don't feel I trust them. So, we have these documents, but you should have sort of a fundamental knowledge of that you trust this person. Maybe the relationship changes over the project, but you probably still won't not trust them, but you will just have a reason else for breaking up, which happens. But I do want to sort of second what Tara said, like, you're spending so much time with these people. And a lot of times you're spending more time with them than a significant other. You're celebrating your wins. You're licking your wounds on your defeats, but in the day, in the in-between time, you're doing the work. And you want someone that you're happy and comfortable working with. And there's a book called Founder's Dilemma that talks a lot about this. So. Jose?
Taking notes. My question was, so I think that for my idea, it's because it's an app, I don't necessarily know how much like to ask for an investment, like, hey, I want this much money from you, because I think it depends on the circumstances on who's creating it, because some people will already have a lot of money, so they don't need that much money. And then someone doesn't have
Is your theory that someone's going to work for you because they're rich and they're going to work for you for free?
No. What I'm saying is that like whoever's starting the company, right, is whatever situation they are in, they might have better advantages or better resources, so they might not need as much money because they can rely on other people for something, or like, so how do I?
This is actually going to be more of what your homework is, but your homework is going to be setting an initial budget for what you need to survive. So what this is traditionally called is a runway budget. And it's understanding I need this much money to get to this point in my business where I can either turn a profit or raise more money. So, if for something like Tarform, Tarus raised his first round of funding from friends and family. From people he knew that believed in him. And he said, I'm going to build a prototype and use that prototype to go raise another round of funding, a seed round of funding. And then I'm going to use that seed round to build a production prototype and take the bike into production. And then I'm going to move into a Series A once I'm in production. So these are different levers you pull of raising capital. And yes, someone may be higher capitalized, but even if you're putting your own money into your business, you still need to have a very clear idea of what your budget is to reach where you're going. And you should bake in the average cost of hiring someone even if that person may come to you for cheaper, even if you have to give that person equity. You want to bake in those costs on the off chance you have someone who's working for you and he has equity and he's doing a great job and you don't have to pay him because he has equity. So you're like, this is awesome. He's got a separate job, so he doesn't need the capital from your company. He's doing it as a side project. He gets hit by a truck. I don't want to be bleak, or ends up incapacitated. And you have to hire someone to come in. You need to understand that all of a sudden I'm going to need $100,000 a year budget to pay a developer or a consultant. And if you haven't built that in, you're setting yourself up to end up in a place where you may have to go ask for more money or fund it yourself or go out of business. So, Brooke.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to, I mean, now I have multiple questions after what you just said, but to go back to what we were talking about when Tara, I think that's his name, I don't want to mispronounce it, was speaking, we should have a target audience, right? Because I asked him and I didn't, did he have a target audience? I know that's a really like
No, he really didn't. He definitely started on the if I build it, they will come theory. I do not suggest you do that.
I was
that was very risky. That was very risky. Yeah.
I've done it with a few businesses that have been accidentally successful because I didn't know what I was doing. And Taurus, but I mean, the one thing about it is that Taurus has done this so many times. He's actually straight written brand guides for people understanding target audience. So he wasn't operating outside of the knowledge of like, I'm just going to make something. He knew that he couldn't really figure out who his audience was until he had something to show them.
Okay, yeah, because that makes a lot of sense. I was looking at his website, and they're not like cheap bikes.
They're not cheap at all.
He mentioned in another presentation that he's starting with the luxury market, right? Because there's so much cost, especially when it's handmade, and so he has to target that. It's not, even if his preference was to not do that, it's just the cost of like creating it is just so high. That's where he needs to start. And then he can scale down if it becomes more and more successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous. The one thing about it is, if you build a motorcycle, you're targeting people who ride motorcycles, so you can start with that as your initial audience,
which is an older audience, right? And they're
the Harley market's an older market, but not all motorcycles fall into that category. And if you look at the two-wheel market worldwide, the two-wheel market is very young. Go to Vietnam, go to Italy, go to India.
You go to Southeast
I didn't know he was
Asia.
worldwide. I thought he was like only in the U.S. I thought he was
starting.
Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah, these are great points. It's starting right in the U.S., but that's just to build the prototype and to get it started. And then
I don't mean to be like complaining about this guy. It was like really great to talk to.
You're asking great questions. Brooke, I love that you're involved and you're asking questions. It's awesome. We're just trying to
I know. I just feel like I'm just like I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. I'm just like.
But I will say this: sometimes when you make something, you need to be able to show someone it before. Like if you go to focus group before you go to some sort of prototype. And I can use a very, very classic example: the iPhone. When Steve Jobs was developing it, people were like, "No one's going to want this," and Steve Jobs was like, "Yes, they will." And they were like, everyone had these super small phones, and like the goal was the smaller the phone was better. And he comes out with this piece of toast that's like a screen, and everyone was like, the Apple nerds were like, awesome. And Steve Jobs was like, if we had focus group tested it, it never would have worked well. And he was kind of like, I'm going to build it, I'm going to put it in people's hands, they're going to use it, and when they see how cool it is, they're going to buy it. So.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Just because again, like I'm building an app, so it's like it's very specific, it's not like I'm building a motorcycle, that's
exactly, which means your MVP should be a lot cheaper to start getting feedback on.
So for sure, right?
This is the lean startup cycle of build, test, repeat. Build, test, repeat. So Paxton, your question about who gets paid more in partnerships, that's a really weird one. But let's just break it down to percentages. So if you found the company and you have 60% of the company and you bring in a co-founder and they have 40% and you guys are doing profit sharing, you're getting 60%, they're getting 40%. But if you are a founder and you hire a CEO and give them equity and they have 5% of the company, but they're running the operations, they may make a salary and you may not. You may be living off of just profits. But that is all being said that the company is making money, or the company has enough investors that you can pay yourself. Many times when you first start out, like I know with many startups I've been involved with, the founders were either paying themselves through other jobs they had, or they had secured enough funding where they could take a small salary out. But if an investor looks at the pie chart, which we're going to do next, of your business expenses, and you've carved out 50% of that pie chart to your salary, that investor may say, well, why am I paying Paxton $160,000 a year with a $500,000 investment and everything else, So, you're allowed to pay yourself, but you need to be super careful about it, because many times, and there's a great book called, Leaders Eat Last or Founders Eat Last, you're the last to get paid. You pay your suppliers, you pay your employees, and then you pay yourself. So that's one thing to remember, is that everyone thinks big boss, big money. Normally that boss could end up with you can end up with the biggest slice sometimes at the end, or you can end up with the smallest slice. So that's an important thing to take into consideration. All right, let's get back to does anyone have any more questions? I know that we kind of move in and out of cool things to talk about, but does anyone have any more questions before we move into the next presentations? All right.
I reposted who's left to present just now. So MATLAB, you guys are next up.
Yeah, hi. Hope you can see our screen. Okay.
Okay. So our idea is called the MATLAB, and our mission statement, it's an online store that makes material sampling and sourcing accessible to everyone. So it's basically an e-commerce platforms that helps connect like architects and designers with vendors, and they're going to be able to source like material samples and also connect for the final product with them. So it helps them visualize their material palettes.
And we picked 3 keywords for our brand tone: honest, professional, and reliable. Honest because we want to be a brand that clearly communicates our offering and our process, and we believe that honest customer service is key. Professional because we're dealing with clients, vendors, and architects, so we want to be sincere and professional in terms of having a smooth operation. And we're reliable because we're dedicated to providing our customers with best materials effectively and efficiently. We designed a logo, which is a combination of M and the letter M and L. And the 4 bars signify the different, our different target audiences. So architects, vendors, clients, and designers. Then we went on to choose some colors that, that match our visual language. It has to be professional, sincere, like similar to our brand tone. Yeah, so we chose a font that's like a simple sans serif font because we're an online platform. We wanted something that adapts to mobile screens, iPad, desktop. And yeah, this is like a quick visualization of the box. We use the colors and fonts, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Very, very nice. I love your logo. I love the meaning in it, and I love the way it looks. And just go back to the box visualization. So from our final pitch, and when you're talking to anyone, having a visualization like this is so important, because I see this and all of a sudden I'm like, now I know what I'm getting. Now I know what I'm investing in, or why I'm working with you to help create this. So we talked about brand living in your brain, but then, the handbag being the thing that you hold. Seeing the thing that you hold is very important to have that brand live in your brain. So this is excellent, guys. I don't have a lot of comments. I think this is really well done. Carl, did you have any?
No, that's literally what I was going to say. This is gorgeous, and keep going. You're doing great.
Okay.
Yeah, as I said before, the reason we do this exercise sort of at this point is to give a little bit of body and weight to everything we've been talking about. we've been using words and surveys, and now we're seeing a visualization of that. So when we start presenting it, it has that feeling that lives in your brain a little more. And I think this was such a good way, because now when I think about this, I'm going to think about these slides and think about how you just laid this out, more than just like an online sourcing and material site, you know. So good job.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Next.
Sophia.
Or
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so I'm going to present about my as a stationery brand, and to be briefly explain about it, as a company manufactures safe stationery products for children. The brand name that I came up with is my stationery company for children is Sabene. So I should have done this like earlier, but this I couldn't. I'm loaded for the last few presentations, so I decided to put my main product that I'm very confident about it, and which is the safety Caesar that I mentioned earlier. So next I'm going to talk about the core competency. I came up with honesty, innovation, and safety and community for like 4 main cures that I can come up with. And then during the Simon speech, he talked about like the golden circle that includes like 3 main components for branding, and that's like starts from the inspiration to branding. So I decided to follow the steps because I'm not confident with like building up the branding. So originally, most of the people like start off with the thinking what you do and what do company does, but it has to be in the backward. So I started with why, and then I ended up with thinking what. So for every product I design, I believe like improvements of the usage of the stationery product in innovative ways. And then that's how I pursue how to make a product safely designed, easy to use, and injury-free. And then lastly, I just have to happen to make a great stationery product. Oh my. Sorry. Yeah, so from that process, the final mission statement that I came up with my brand is to enable high quality of the utilization through safe and innovative inventions for individual users as well as community.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say your mission statement is also a little wordy. You know, I think it could be reduced a little bit. I think everything else that you're sort of defining makes sense. You're sort of looking at it the right way. Obviously, when we present to people, we'll make sure that your slides don't crash halfway through. And I will say having a visualization of what you're making has been is also really helpful. And you guys are kind of getting to that MVP point. If you could get it so it looks, you know, I don't want to make you do anything that you can't do easily. But if you could design it into CAD and render it so it looks realistic, and I know there's some very talented, and if you're not an industrial design student, there's very talented industrial design students that could probably do that pretty quickly for you. It might be good for your final pitch to show it like beautifully rendered, you know, maybe with the child holding it Photoshop.
Okay, thank you.
Carl?
Yeah, great job. I like seeing the actual visuals. So now I have like a visual representation. Like Peter said, moving it into like a realistic rendering from like more of like a illustrated version is great, but I still think that illustrated really helped me then understand. The mission statement, so it wasn't just wordy, it's also like it's a little amorphic because it's using like words like utilization, right? And utilization is just kind of a very broad concept. So it felt kind of theoretical. So I want it to be a little bit more grounded. And so we can talk about that, but I think you did a great job. I think I'm really intrigued by the product.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, I'm glad you said it like that. Like trying to use more specific words, not amorphic words, like really broad, like there's a thing that I was talking about, like not to use like really bold adjectives and like first ever, because it sounds too salesman-y and it's not as authentic, right, Carl?
Yeah, exactly. Like I just, like utilization for what? What does utilization mean in this context and stuff? So then we can just get it grounded down, but it's definitely, you're on the right track. These are refinements. Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Who's next? Jose?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
You
Yep,
look at my
that's good.
screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So my company is Vincente. Just to reiterate what my company is, it's a art marketplace platform for student artists. Vincente came up with means conquering in Latin because I wanted the company to help student artists to conquer that initial step of selling and promoting your artwork that artists have. And then the mission statement is helping student artists sell and promote their artwork without having to compete with professional artists. So some words for the tone of the company is serious, easy, unique, and personal. I chose these serious as in the design of the app. I wanted it to be structured in a way that when the artist presents their artwork, it makes them look really professional. I wanted it to be easy for the users, buyers, and sellers to navigate the app. Unique, obviously, within like the design of it and like the logo, and then personal because I wanted it to have like a social, almost personal side to it where you can add, like, and comment on artists, and artists can do that between other artists, and you can share it. And then these are the taglines: connecting buyers to the next generation of artists, and upper edge for younger artists. Sorry, I said that. Those are two different ones. I don't know which one I'm going to go with. And then I didn't add all the iterations of the logos, but this is the logo design that I ended up with. And then the name, and I chose Roboto font. Wasn't too much thought into it, and then these are the colors that I went with. Yeah.
Very nice. So anyone who's doing the app idea, Jose, can you go back to your screen with the app screenshots of the screen grabs of the, so this is very common in how pitch decks, pitch apps to show like sort of, I mean, it's a digital product. So unless you're really going to code it up and be able to provide it to the person you're talking to, you're generally going to have to give them a flow chart of how the app works, with like how the user starts and what the outcome is of your goal of selling them something, onboarding them for something. So doing this does show a very clear visualization of what they would be investing in. So this is the type of MVP visualization we want to see in your pitch decks. On this though, I would not, this goes more to your specific pitch. Since you're saying artists and students, that aren't competing with real, with professional artists. And then I see a famous, like you're selling a Met piece there, it looks like. You may want to try to like make sure it's actual student looking artwork, or I don't know what that means because I know students that can paint as well as, Rembrandt, but like it's like not showing something that would be immediately known and iconic, showing something, that would be really what you'd have on the site,
Yeah.
Carl, what did you have?
I thought it was a great job. I'm just picking up on, you sounded like hesitant. Sometimes you like kind of were like self-critical when you're presenting. So I'm just thinking you seem really smart. You're obviously extremely talented. You have this great product and stuff. And so I'm just, I'm just saying that's something just to, it made me wonder like, oh, I wonder why, like, and if you make a mistake, like if you repeat yourself, that's fine. No one's even going to notice that. And that's someone, when I've done professional acting, and if I'm like up in front of like 500 people and performing and I say one line wrong, in my head, I used to think, oh my God, I screwed that up. No one ever notices. You know, I wouldn't have known that unless you had said it. So that hopefully that helps you feel better. Like if that happens again, you don't have to worry about it. But
Carl, I remember I learned this from one of my friends who's a very good presenter, but when you make a mistake, instead of saying, oh no, just take a breath and just, you know, like you're meditating, you note the thought, but don't ever say it out loud. Just be like, I missed that one in my head. Take a breath, and it never hurts to pause. You can always take a pause.
Yeah, there's a number.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, exactly. There's a number of things you can do. One of them is we're often afraid to pause. But then when someone does that, you see what I just did, then it gives you a sense of confidence. It gives a sense of control. It allows you to breathe into your diaphragm. Like when you're presenting, you're going to notice that you're breathing shallow. You're going to be breathing from like the upper part as opposed to like deep into. So that's things that just like lower your cortisol and stuff. So all sorts of techniques.
Yeah.
And I love this stuff. I could talk about this stuff all day, you know, but you did great. And so that's the thing that I would focus on is I'm just wondering, you know, why is, you know, Jose, there's another time when you talked about the font Roboto and you go like, I don't know why I chose it, you know, and stuff, which I think is funny. Like you obviously have awesome humility and like a sense of humor and stuff, but I guess you're just working out the kinks before the final presentation. So I'm not worried about it. I'm just saying it was, you know, I noticed it.
Yeah.
I think one kink that I noticed that I didn't bring up that I do want to bring up now is that I do say, I think in my company, like mission is connecting.
Can we see your mission, Jose? Is that okay? Like if we go to that.
Yeah, could you bring that slide up? I spotted something there, but I didn't think it was, I figured you'd work out a lot of it, but yeah. So what?
Well, so I think I accidentally messed it up. So in my slogan, or no, yeah, sorry. In this one, I say like, helping them not compete with professional artists. But then when I go to this slide, it says like I do want the app to look and present the artist's work seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of contradicting itself.
So let's just go back to the tag. Let's go back to the mission statement.
Yeah.
I actually saw this and I had the same thought. I was like, it's weird to say not competing against professional artists, because I do think as a student artist, you're still a professional artist. I don't think art, you know, I don't think artists, what you do, it's who you are. So like everyone, like professional and non-professional artists is a weird term to me because I don't see it like that. You know, but I think you could make it as something as, you know, helping student artists, you know, helping students become professional artists, or, you know, helping students promote their work. You could just cut it in half.
Yeah, exactly. Jose, what I was going to say is two things. One, I'm sure you would have figured this out if you know, like there, obviously you want to spell it the other way and stuff. But like the other thing is it's a run-on sentence, and you don't want a run-on sentence for, and I'm stream of conscious guy, so I get it. I have a lot of run-on sentences. And then when I'm proofreading my writing, what I'll do if I feel like a way to tell is if you're running out of breath or you're starting to lose focus when you're reading a sentence, think about it, is it multiple ideas? So in this case, it's two different ideas, break that into two sentences, and even better, what Peter just said, he skipped that step and just went to one sentence. So again, it's crystallizing this idea, you know, into like one sentence, you know, like not a run-on, but like a crystallized, like single idea.
And I'll actually use, I mean, as I said, Taurus and I have worked together a long time, so we share a lot of similar thoughts, but one thing Taurus once said to me when I was doing design for him just for fun, I was like, do you want this on here? And he goes, is it necessary? And I was like, no. He goes, let's delete everything that's unnecessary. And I was like, cool, I like that. And he's like, that should be our mission. Let's just get rid of what we don't need. And I'm like, I like that. So think about, you know, sometimes thinking about framing things is a great way of like, what is the shortest way I can present this?
Yeah.
All right, very nice, thank you.
Good job. So
who is next?
Yeah, it's Class Hood, and I can present.
Great.
Okay. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So Classhood helps creatives who want to learn new skills and connect with each other by providing a platform with expert lead classes locally. And the story behind the brand name is that obviously I wanted to have a platform that provide classes with design creative focuses with workshops and etc. But also this hood comes out from this neighborhood and community kind of background. So it's like my hood, your hood, and we're taking classes together in our hood. It's like that. So the intended brand tone voice is friendly, laid back, creative and social and fun, but at the same time, since it's expert led, so like I want it to sound smart and knowledgeable and intelligent as well. The one liner that I came up with is discover expert led classes near you. And this is the logo and branding that I created. The font is mostly sans serif. I just wanted to have like a minimal and modern aesthetic, and the colors are a little more whimsical, but mostly having like a kind of like a just like a modern minimal look. And I designed some initial screens over here so that you can take a look. And so that's kind of like a very springy and design kind of look to the app. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, very, very nice. Actually, I thought it was a very concise and clear presentation, and this is exactly what I was hoping to get. So I think that you have a very clear understanding of what your target is, how you want to talk, your brand tone, and how you want to talk about it. The only comment I had is on your visuals of your screenshots. They don't feel as clean as the presentation you just gave me. They feel a little cluttered, which you may want to think through a little bit. Like if, I know now when the digital products that I like the best have a little tighter of a feeling. They don't feel like Expedia or Travelocity. They feel a lot smoother and crisper. And this has a little more of a dated mid 2000s, early 2010 feel. So you may want to think a little more about that, Carl.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my sense, is a little too much text. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, it's busy.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but absolutely beautiful. Like, I love your sense of aesthetic. You have a, really beautiful sense of aesthetic, really great presentation. I mean, my feedback is the same as all of you. All of you I want to know your origin story. Like I want to know like what it was that like really drove you to put a focus, on this. And so, like I know we mentioned this last time. And so I'm skipping ahead to the presentation, but it's just, planting that seed to think about that. And in the meantime, yeah, it's just cleaning it up so you can be even more simplified because, your design is so clean. So it's exactly what Peter was saying. I'd love to see more of a minimalism reflected in your slide deck you seem to embody in your aesthetic, your font and everything else.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for the feedback.
Yes, good job. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
All right, who is next?
That'll be us.
Zach, how are you? Ayushi, how are you?
So hi there, my name is Zachary Leong and I'm here with Ayushi Shah, and we are Rooted Bunch, trying to provide you with your daily dose of culture. And so to start off, here are just a few words that kind of resonate with our brands. We're focusing on community, traditions, and culture, specifically Asian cultures, through, celebrating stories. We're hitting that kind of organic, personal, kind of social aspect and kind of get that vibe going on with everyone in our community. So myself and Ayushi, we both wanted, a platform or a way to share our stories. So our official mission is to foster an interactive community for those who want to reconnect to their Asian roots through exploring, sharing, and documenting their cultural practices and traditions. So just a little bit about like building our brand, choosing our name, we chose Rooted because, of its ties to culture, family, it's a little more down to earth. Bunch because of the community, the sense of community it brings, togetherness and sharing. And here are just some elements that we have chosen for our brand so far. And thank you, that's it.
It looks good to me. Can you remind me I kind of have an idea, but what's your final product going to be? Like, what's your final, or like mission events? Like, I know that you guys had a lot of sort of different ideas, but can you tell me, like, if let's say I want to invest in this, how are you going to take this other than being an Instagram channel?
So what we had like originally planned, we did like shift what we were gonna do, as you said beforehand. So we initially started with like, oh, a potential like notebook, like focusing on documenting and things like that as like a physical product. But now we're actually sort of leaning towards what Paige was actually talking about today, or you know, kind of like a spotlight for a community, you know, kind of going that angle through memberships or through events and things like that.
Okay, that's the one thing that, I mean, I know you don't need to show it in this, but I just kind of was like, as I was looking at this, I was like, wait, I completely forgot which way you guys were going and how this was going to be used. And I bring that up to bring up, you know, the way your logo is laid out right now on a website might be okay, but it might read really weird on mobile, you know.
No, yeah,
so,
this is just the word mark, I guess.
Yeah, it's really long.
Yeah.
I'm literally thinking about this from like a technical organization standpoint for graphic design in the future. You know, where it kind of just is this really long thing that's not aligned well. So, and I mean, I know that's on purpose. You've had me as a professor before, so you understand what I'm saying. But that was really it. I mean, I think overall, I think you guys' mission is exactly where you want it to be. And I think you guys really have put a lot of thought into this and are headed the right direction. I'm talking more of just like technicalities of design right now. Carl?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like when we met last time, it's the same question. I'm just trying to understand exactly like what the product is, you know, and like in the incentive structure. So like, and also like, so if someone, like if I'm interested in you know, Asian stuff, would I be allowed to be part of this? Or like, is there, you know, would I need to be you know, connected ethnically to like India or East Asia? Like those are the kind of questions that I would want to know, just if I want to support this to be part of this, would it be welcoming or not? And
yeah,
know, that kind of stuff.
And I think the next phase of this is going to be, because, you know, we're going to talk about what is your budget, what is your goal, you know, what are the goals you want to do? Like in 12 months, where do you see this business? What is it doing? How much money do you need to get to that point? Is there a way that the company can turn a profit, or maybe you go get a grant? Like they were talking about, they use the Taconic grant to essentially test their MVP. And maybe that's the route you're taking, and that's completely fine. But our next step is going to figure out, like, where do we see ourselves in 12 months and how much money do we need to get there? And then what is the outcome after those 12 months happen, right? So that's the budget I want you guys to look at.
Yeah, and how to make it sustainable. And because I think you mentioned before, like we can't just like be living off of grants, right?
I mean, you can be a nonprofit and you can live off of, and that's what nonprofits do. You're always fundraising, you know, and you're paying yourself through the nonprofit, but you are not, you know, it's a different, and an NGOs, nonprofits, NPOs, they're all perfectly fine. I mean, I know people that run them, they get paid very well, but like it's a difference of how you structure the business. You know, I think it's like 60% has to go back into whatever your state. There has to be, the mission statement has to be like fully like legally documented, things like that. Carl?
Can I see, Zach, can I see the mission statement? Okay. Got it. Okay. So yeah, it's broad, right? So I guess that's maybe why I'm confused and stuff like that.
Yeah, there are different parts to it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's just you know, breaking it down a little bit. So there's the mission, and then like getting more like granular and stuff. Like what exactly does that mean, I guess?
In the next 2 weeks, you're going to sort of kind of have to come up with exactly where you're ending up, because that's where we're really trying to optimize.
You know, we talked about like cooking and like sharing recipes. Like there's been a lot of, you know, stuff. So I'm just trying to understand, you know, just like what exactly, you know, like I love it. I love the idea. I love your aesthetic, and you have great presentation. Now I'm just trying to be like, okay, what exactly, you know, so it's more bulletproof.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl, do you want to do one more, and then anyone that hasn't presented can present next week? Does that sound good? So we have a little time to close out.
Oh, do you need time to go over like next class prep and stuff?
I mean, I just figured trying to fit everyone in doesn't make sense. I think we should just maybe one or two more, and then. But
Can I just see how many people are left? Can I just see by 4? So there's 4 people.
That's what it says in chat.
Got it. How many people are actually left? Mary.
I think there's 3 actually left, because I don't think Timmy was able to log on for workforce.
I just think it's worth, since we only have 3 left and we have 14 minutes, let's just do this.
Do it. Everything else can be sent via email.
Yep. You guys worked hard on this. Every single one of you has been really great. So you deserve it. Let's do it. Who's next?
The Arts Ally.
Yeah, that's me. I'm just trying to figure out how to share my screen. Hope this works. I've been having like massive issues with sharing my screen today, so I really don't.
Like Wi-Fi stuff, or?
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to work, which is an issue. So I can go next week if you guys want, just because I'm currently running into issues, which is ironic because I had already told Paxton that.
Okay, why don't we go, Brooke? Why don't we go to the next person and then,
well, I try to figure it out.
If you figure it out, then you can work on it while the other people.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Mary?
All right. Yeah, Mary.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So just as a reminder of the project, Wallace Smart Clothes, high nut color that aims to create personal space where you can express your emotions and feelings aloud safely. It helps maintain your mental health, and also a very useful thing to have in a cold weather. I wasn't sure like if I'm allowed to do this, but I was thinking about the vibe of the brand. So I really like Dyson in case of trust for technology and premium, and also North Face, the way how they represent young people in sport. So that's how I see my thing, like combination of these 2 brands. So it's smart clothes that creates healthy habits, self-caring, because the best way to deal with one of the way to deal with overwhelming emotions, high tech, because it's capable to lower sound to 12 decibels, and influential because it's comfortable, stylish, and easy to use. Here are some colors and aesthetics, like it can be modern, clean, and bold. I guess this colors helps to address this 3 words. And also I was thinking about the slogan, keep talking or speak out. Yeah, that's it.
Very nice. Yeah, don't apply. You can beg, borrow, and steal from other brands. I'm not sure I'd make a slide of it, but telling us is fine. Don't tell anyone else. But yeah, I mean, I've jokingly said if there's a something stylistically you like about someone else's brand, or you feel you want to what is copying is all flattery or whatever, as long as you're not stealing from them. But yeah, you can definitely lay things out.
But what
say, I like this and I like this. I want to combine it, and I think that's exactly what I see here. So good job.
Thank you. But what if I like to steal more emotions than the aesthetic, or it's super connected that I can really divide what I may steal in here? Are they trying to create these emotions through their aesthetic, or right?
I think that's a bigger question.
Yeah, right.
Dyson is engineering, clean, simple, and it looks and they designed it to look that way. REI is outdoorsy, but also transparent environment. So you just have to look at, and you're understanding that that's the question to ask, and that's the question you want to answer for your brand. Carl?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I started laughing because you have speak out and then people's mouths are covered. And so it's just like there's you know what I mean? Like, you know, like I think this is it's a great product and everything, but like this, if you have something that speak where, you know, it's expression from your voice and you literally in, you know, coordination with a picture where their, you know, mouth is completely covered, then it's sending to like there's a little cognitive dissonance going on. So I would say maybe speak out on a slide where it's zipped down.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, whatever like feels safe and where it's zipped up, right?
Yeah, I like keep talking the idea that you can talk and no one can see you talking. I like to keep talking.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, maybe give some. I didn't get that. Maybe I'm thick, you know, like with the last product where I'm just trying to figure out what it is or what you know, like it's the same thing here. It's just when I hear
maybe more about like
very visual
space, not like about speak, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see, exactly. So here's the thing. If you're going to say speak up, you literally in that picture, you had like, was that representing like sound waves? Is that what that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where you'd say speak up. And then on the picture where it's up, like what is the idea of like up? It's like maybe like feel safe or whatever you know, what's
like
the
pick
biggest...
out safely, basically.
Yeah. So what's the biggest takeaway from that visual? It's not speaking, right? It's something else. So I just like coordinate that with the
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job.
Great job. Next, I want to make a quick comment on that. When we talked about our customer research, these are also things that you can go show people and see if what you think you're conveying, if they're seeing it. And rather than giving them the mission or just show them the brand and be like, well, how do you think this reads? You know, tagline, product, brand, and ask them, what do you think you see? And see what kind of feedback you get. Because you may learn that what you intend, they see something different. So this is something these are all things you can test, communication testing. So
got it. Thank you.
Brooke, did you figure it out?
So it said I had to reset my entire computer, and I feel like that I'd rather hear what you guys have to say than like about everything else. And hopefully, if it's okay with you, I can either set up a separate time to talk with you or
next week. We're not going to have homework between here. You're going to have homework, you know. So next week we're going to still be doing presentations.
All right, great. So I'll just present them. Thank you so much.
Great.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. Valeria.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. My product is application for students. And being a student can be overwhelming, especially when it comes to choosing a school or finding a job. With UniV, we want to change this and make this process less stressful. We believe that by uniting all students in one app, they would be able to help each other with making the right choice because nobody knows better than other students. UniV is a user-friendly app that provides you with many resources that can help to make your student life easier. The minimalistic design and blue tones as the main colors would make your user experience even better by giving a sense of freedom, open spaces, and inspiration. And yeah, this is the ideology that I just mentioned. And as logo and graphic elements, Uni is like university and also united. V and E is the first letters of founders, mine and my friends, and also V as sounds almost like we, which also kind of like unites all students together. Also for like graphic elements, I used only smooth shapes. Fonts, something basic, minimalistic, and color palette, also like blue tones that helps to keep the design clean and just minimalistic. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
You didn't present last class.
Yes.
Okay. You pivoted a lot from the last time we spoke. So before you were just going to be a place to find internships, right?
Yes.
And now you pivoted to like a full service sort of app for students, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk through why you made that pivot? Because since you didn't present your customer research, I don't know what.
Yeah, so during like my research, I asked a couple of my friends and just like random people basically, and the feedback that I got was really positive. Like everybody was interested in this, and they proposed so many ideas what I can add in this application. They also like somebody told me that maybe finding an apartment closer to the university would be helpful. Like I can add something like this as an option. And like since then I didn't add all options that my interviewers told me, but yeah, I felt like now the application became more like really helpful resource for students, not only for internships or schools, but pretty much about student life.
Okay. I think that's really good that you identified that and made that pivot. I have another student that is pitching me something similar in my entrepreneurship class that this, what Facebook was created for doesn't really exist anymore because it was supposed to be just for university students. So I do think there's a market for it. And I think like making that thing, your mission statement seemed very long. I think you may want to trim that. And then just start practicing the pitch of the new product. Because it seemed like you're like, here's the kitchen sink and we'll do all of it. But I kind of want to know what you can do immediately for an MVP to, in your case, you're going to be looking for mass adoption or at least adoption by some campuses. And why you can, how you're going to get that adoption is what we're going to want to look at next. If you're launching it at Pratt, if you're launching it at another campus, how you're launching it, what the first things you're going to offer is and how you're going to build it. Carl?
Yeah, again, it's the same thing that I'm saying to a lot of people. I'm trying to understand exactly, what it is so I can get a sense of like who exactly is it for specifically instead of just like everybody, right? And then like what exactly does it do? Like, and how's that cost effective? And then also like, for the example, if you're starting at Pratt, you might want to use Pratt instead of Harvard, right? Because Harvard's so cliche or whatever to just like, it's like, Harvard or, whatever. It'd be nice to give Pratt some rep, maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah. Do what you know.
Pratt represent, you guys are a top 5 like design school. You guys should be proud. So, I mean, that's, you guys are awesome too, but don't have to go to Harvard, but
Yeah, sure.
I say
I was thinking
Columbia
about
guy
that.
or whatever, but like but you guys are awesome. And so that's all I'd say is just like more clarification. And so I always go to the mission statement, to see what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So great job today. Really, really proud of the progress you're making. And now we're kind of getting down to it. So the next, you generally have most of the slides you would need for a pitch deck already sort of created. You're answering those questions, you're making smart pivots. And then the next step is going to be sort of defining like how much money you need, what you're going to do with it, and how long it'll take you, and then what your next goal is for whatever project you're working on. So, those are the last big questions you're going to have to answer. So, your homework, which I'm going to finish this week and we'll probably get to on Friday, and then we can talk about it next class, is going to really talk about setting a budget for an MVP, what it's going to take to get that MVP to where you want it, and how long it's going to take. So normally a friends and family round, they're not really expecting you to immediately raise to the next place, but you generally want to think about most startup timelines in 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months. And those are normally, if everything goes perfect, which it never does, and you're able to grow at the scale that you want to, which doubtful you will, but it's normally 12 months, and then you go do a seed round, and the seed round's where you bring in angel investors, which we'll talk a little bit more about next week. And then after 18 months, then if you're super successful, converts into Series A stock shares, and you have an institutional investing. Then you close a round of building from there. But I'm not asking you guys to show me all the way to the point where you're making millions. I'm asking you to show me how you would even get to a round of raising money through an angel investor, which would be considered a seed round. That's what I want you to focus on. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of little worksheets and some examples. And I'm going to ask you guys to create a basic budget, a basic runway, and a basic target goal for what your next step would be. And that'll all be due in 3 weeks or 4 weeks from now, I think on March 21st or 26th.
What's
26th? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 26th.
26th. So it's 2 weeks before the final pitch.
Yeah. And those are going to be the last slides. And then our last class on that class, we're going to start talking about how you pitch and how you make a pitch deck. And we're going to have someone who's an expert in pitching come and talk to you and coach you.
Yeah. So wonderful job, everyone. I was so impressed with every single one of you. You did such a great job, and you're now like very close to the finish line. And like I said, we're going to send out a thing about how you feel if you have any questions or concerns about if we do this in person for the final pitch. We think it'd be a wonderful opportunity. The three of us, the president, the people that I've talked to about it, some faculty members and stuff. But if you have serious concerns, I want to hear that. And at the end of the day, you're the most important thing for us. That's what we're focused on. And so we would just want to make this the best for you guys. So let us know, and Paxton will send it out on Monday, right? Just a quick survey, and give us as specific feedback as you want. And thank you.
Thank you guys. This is fun.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Great
much.
job. Really great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Paxton and Peter.
Yeah, I'm hanging for a second.
And I'll turn off recording this time instead of recording our planning conversation. Let's see. Stop.